So good morning, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the West LA Democratic Club, part two of our Judicial Forum. We have our Board of Supervisors, District 2 Forum with Holly Mitchell, and we have our LAUSD District 1 Forum to consider today. I just want to tell you all welcome from the board, which I'm going to introduce you to in a minute. And I'm Cara Robin, and the president of the club, if you don't know me. And if you do, hello again. This morning, I wanted to do a little exercise, something I've been practicing, a little gift my daughter gave me. And it's all about smiling. And it's all about having intentions. And when you breathe in, and when you breathe out a smile. And it's so easy. You just breathe in, breathe out a smile. And I want to read you this little passage, and it's from a book called How to Smile by the famous Thich Nhat Hanh. And it's called Blooming Like a Flower. And it's when we notice the presence of anger, fear, or agitation in us, as we often do these days, that's my aside, we don't need to throw them away. We only have to breathe in and out with intention and awareness and embrace the emotion with mindfulness. This alone is enough to calm the storm. Mindfulness is like the morning sunshine on a flower that is closed overnight. The sunshine embraces and permeates the flower, and the flower begins to open. There's no effort. We don't need to wait for a storm before we begin to practice. When we're not suffering, conscious breathing will make us feel wonderful, and it's the best way to prepare ourselves to deal with troubles when they come. So can we all do this together? Can we all just breathe in and breathe out a smile? Breathe in and breathe out a smile. Thank you. Okay, that's my little morning Mary Sunshine here. And
I love how you're wearing a skull sweater while you're doing that. Can I just say?
Yeah, one of my favorites. Before we go on, I'd like to introduce those of the board. We elected a new board yesterday, and I'm really happy. It's great. We have a couple of new officers, couple of new members at large, and some new committee chairs. So I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know who all's in here, but so I'm Cara Robin, and guess what? I'm president again. So if you didn't know that, we have a new vice president of political action, and that he is Matthew Diamond. Is Matthew on yet this morning? I don't know. I don't see Matthew. If he's on, we'll highlight him. And then we have our VP operations again. Again, she's fabulous. She's Ingrid Van Eckert. And she has family in from Germany that came in this morning, so she will not be able to be with us. And our secretary, I think a lot of our people aren't here yet. Our secretary, Kelly Willis. Our treasurer, Susan Blanchard, is here. Susan? Can we find Susan, Jane? Well,
Susan,
anyway.
you have to turn on your camera in order for us to highlight you, spotlight you.
And then we have our newest member at large, Sue Himmelrich. Yay, Sue. Former mayor of Santa Monica, I might add. So, and a really wonderful person and friend. Oh, Sue, you look great.
And oh yeah, right. I just got out of, I was going to apologize for looking like a wet rat. I just got out of the shower. So thank you.
Yes, I like your hair. And then we have Louis Watanabe, who is generally actually our timer. I don't know where Louis is this morning, but we have a wonderful replacement this morning, Mary Jack, who's willingly stepped in at the last minute. And Jane Wishod, our newest member at large. And Jane, of course, we know. And Jane has been our brilliantly acting vice president political, which she really cannot take on that huge job because she's also the chair of the West Side Democratic Headquarters, and we have so much going on this year, and we've got to win this election, and so we're counting on Jane to lead us there, but she's also willingly sharing some of her expertise here with us in our club as a member at large. And then we have Mark Salzberg, who's in, and Mark is, oh, I'm sorry, wait, one more officer, Jack Pritchett, our newest Vice President of Communications. Jack, I'm sorry, I just skipped over there. And then we have our committee chairs, Mark Salzberg, who is past president and chair of our Environment and Clean Energy Committee. Really robust, really going full blast. And we'll be announcing more of his meetings and things that are going on with him. We have Beth Lewis, who is our membership chair, has come in and done a great job. Our membership is really increasing. We had lost almost 100 members during COVID, and it's, and it's hard to rebuild your base here, but Beth is doing a wonderful job. Thank you, Beth. Connie Thomas, who is a chair of our local issues committee, and Connie has been working very closely with Lane, and she's, when we send out announcements of action that helping them, getting on lines, picket lines with them and supporting them, Connie's the one who keeps us abreast of that. And she also works with the neighborhood councils, letting us know what's going on in the community. Frances Penn, yay, Frances. Frances is the chair of one of our longest standing committees, the senior advocates. And Frances is really an example, a prime example of having passion and just living your passion. Just
Frances, if you could turn your camera on, please.
Because we love Frances. I'm looking. I think that's all of the committee chairs who are on. We have, as I said, I think Louis Watanabe, I don't know where he is. We have Mike Newhouse, who is the new committee chair of our Ledge Action Committee, which has been dormant for a little over a year and a half. So we're happy to get that on again and seeing what's going on up in Sacramento in the legislation. So I think that's it. And I think we're about ready to, and thank you everyone, by the way. Thank you for serving. I'm really excited to serve this year on the board with you. I think we've got a real powerhouse team here. Okay, so we're going to get started with our first candidates, our first forum. Are they in, Jane? Yeah.
Yes, they
Okay.
are. 1 second. I will spotlight them. Let me see who.
Okay, so these are candidates for Dr. McKenna's seat at LAUSD District 1 for members of.
And I'm sorry, who is keeping time? Mary Jack?
Oh, Mary, yeah. I want to just wait a second.
And we have to highlight her too.
Wait, can you wait just a minute, please? Anyway, so yeah, so these, okay. You say why Jane is so important. She's like always on it. I think we just lost the other candidate. Anyway, so
I'm back. I don't know what just happened.
Sherlett, can we let Sherlett in?
I'm back. Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you. So this is Sherlett Newbill and Didi Watts, who are running for the seat. I want you to know that you will each have 2 minutes to introduce yourselves, and then you will have a series of questions, and we will tell you if they are 2-minute answers or 1.5-minute answers. Some were a little longer, we thought might take a little more time. So we'll let you know. Mary Jack here is going to be your timer. And so we have her here so that she's not going to be saying 1 minute, 30 seconds, because we feel like that is kind of interrupts your train of thought. So she's going to hold up these little papers. Can you read 1 minute and then 30 seconds and then 15 seconds and then time? Okay. So let's, and Jane and I are going to be alternating the questions, giving you the questions. So let's, whoops, let me just see something here. So why don't we start with Miss Newbill, and then we'll go on to Miss Watts, and then we'll get to the questions. So let's hear your 2 minutes. Thank you. Miss Newbill, what you have to, you're muted, honey. You're muted.
Sorry.
Okay.
All right. We
Start now.
working now. We're working. All right. I am Sherlett Handy Newbill. I am a proud daughter of immigrant parents who came to America with hard work ethics and a vision through education. And I believed it. And as a result, was able to go to school here within Board District 1 at 24th Street School Elementary. And I graduated from Dorsey High School. At the time of my graduation, a couple weeks later, unfortunate, I lost my mom. My mom passed away suddenly, and as a result, I had to make a decision whether I was going to continue on to go to college or stay home. And so I actually chose college. I went on to Xavier University, earned a scholarship that took me on to play basketball, and then I returned back to LA with degree in hand, skills of coaching, and I was offered an opportunity to work at Dorsey High School. And so with that, I took on a challenge of being a coach, a teacher, which later turned into being a athletic director, a dean, and also opened the door for me to be the educational policy advisor for Dr. George McKenna, in which the role that I serve right now. And so it brings me great honor to be able to stand before you as a candidate for Board District 1.
Thank you. Didi Watts?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Didi Watts, and I am running for school board because I have a 2-year-old granddaughter who will be attending our schools, and I want her to be able to go into her neighborhood school and get a great education. That wasn't the case for her mother, my daughter, and it wasn't the case for me. I attended LAUSD schools and attended my neighborhood school from kindergarten through 2nd grade and had to leave my neighborhood to get a better education because of low expectations that were held by my teachers. My children, I also had to make very difficult decisions for my children who were not able to attend school in our neighborhood as well. I have been an educator for 27 years. I've served as a teacher, a school psychologist, a special ed administrator, a school site principal, and a nonprofit leader. And I currently serve as the chief of staff to board member Tanya Ortiz Franklin. And in those various roles, I've served in various capacities. I've had the opportunity to serve in the traditional district where I started my teaching career at 93rd Street School. And I have worked across both Board District 7, where I currently serve, and Board District 1 schools, and have spent my entire career doing so. And so, again, I'm running because I want my granddaughter and all other children who are like in the class of 2043 to be able to attend their neighborhood school and get a great education focused on students who have been historically underserved in our district, to make sure that there's equitable resource allocation, that students with special needs get the services and supports that they need, and that families are fully engaged in the educational decision-making process. So thank you for allowing me to be with you today.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, so ladies, the questions are going to be, first we'll have Dr. Watts and then Ms. Newbill. Is there a role for LAUSD in facilitating access to healthcare, social services, and other economic resources in our schools, community schools? Could you elaborate on some strategies for supporting and empowering the rights of specific communities to such access, including LGBTQIA+ community members?
Absolutely.
2 minutes,
Okay.
by the way, 2 minutes on this.
Okay. Absolutely. There is a place, I look at schools as being the hubs of our community. And so for us to be able to make available information to the greater community about health and social services, housing, even all of the resources that are necessary for us to have a thriving and functioning society. We should be able to provide that as a hub. When I previously worked on the school sites, we had partnerships with various entities, and so we would have Healthy Start come in, and they had space on our campuses. We worked with other community organizations that were offered space on our campuses so that they could support the students and families on our campuses. In my last role as a principal, we had both a dental clinic and a health clinic on campus to be able to support the needs of students. And so I think our strategies for doing so are building strong partnerships with city, county, state, and other entities, community partners, to bring those services to bear on our campuses. And we already have a framework for doing so by utilizing the community schools model. Many of our schools are community schools, have community school coordinators, and those coordinators are working in the community to bring those relationships and partnerships to the campuses. But it's something that the greater community can be involved in as well. So I do fully see our schools being those hubs for families so that they can get all of the supports and these services. It's like a one-stop shop, if you will.
Yeah. Ms. Newbill? You're muted again.
Yes,
Thanks.
I'm on. I'm going. I got it.
Amen.
So as mentioned, the district does currently have partnerships with such. I think the strategy would be to increase the community school initiative across the district, primarily within those areas that need those supports. Currently, we only have about 55 schools that have submitted and been approved as a community school. And so it would require educating those within the district of what the services that community schools can provide and how they can partner with entities as such, and making sure that each school has a wellness component. The wellness component would consist of those mobile units or stay at home, so to speak, programs or entities, because many school sites have space to bring on wellness centers to provide those services within their school site. And then it's also to educate our students and the faculty and staff of the resources that we have. Many of the resources exist. It's the lack of communication that they exist as to why they're not fully. And we often, throughout the other strategy, is having periodic fairs, which we do now, making sure that those fairs house the dentists with the medical, and they come out and they get information from our state and our city and local that provide those services for the community. And then they would be able to make those connections and make them longer relationship. And so currently right now, the strategy would be to expand the community school initiative and make sure that our school sites are communicating that with the staff as well as the community of those resources.
Thank you. Jane?
Thank you so much. My turn now. So we'll start with Ms. Newbill and then Ms. Watts. Please explain in your own words the complexities of the challenges and benefits of charter schools. What special challenges are brought on with co-location? And for our members, please explain what co-location means. Thank you.
Thank you. So challenges and co-location. So co-location is the opportunity through Prop 39 to have space provided on our traditional school sites to a charter school that was approved by the board. And so those spaces would allow a charter to come and share said rooms that are vacant, so to speak. And so these vacant facility rooms would house a different entity, a different school. According to the model in 1990, these schools will be innovative. And so that would be the key thing, is this: the school is innovative to be able to house them on a existing traditional school. Now, the complexity of that is that our schools weren't necessarily built to house two entities at the same time. Therefore, they're sharing certain vital spaces like nurses, cafeterias. It creates a problem or concern when it is not amicable where they can share these spaces, and when traditional school spaces are taken away, so to speak, in order to house a charter. So currently, if there is a way to do this, it would be in isolation so that the schools wouldn't have to coordinate bell schedules and coordinate pickup times and things of that nature. And so that creates quite a cumbersome situation on a campus that it may have the space for additional students, but not the space for a whole additional school. And so with that being said, you would have to be able to sit down and figure out a way with the leadership of those campuses to see if that's a viable solution to bringing on a charter onto a traditional site.
Thank you. And Ms. Watts.
Yes, so co-location is the sharing of additional spaces on a traditional school campus with other public school students who attend a charter school. There are both benefits and challenges to both the traditional district and the charter school when we co-locate schools on a campus. I was just visiting a school which was a nice co-location where they had the opportunity to share staff amongst the two schools. So one of the benefits is being able to collaborate and work together and share in best practices for how instructional strategies can occur for students. One of the challenges is if there, again, is not this collaborative relationship and conversation, because as adults, we can choose to collaborate in a way that puts students at the center, and we can think creatively about how we share the spaces. There are co-locations where a nurse is shared across both schools, an athletic coach is shared across both schools. And so we have the opportunity to take some of the practices that are occurring in both our traditional district schools and our charter schools to make sure that we're benefiting students in the long run. So I see our charter school and traditional district school students as one and the same, because they are all public school students. And so how do we as adults work together to ensure that they're going to receive the services and supports that they need? And it's going to be through collaboration.
Thank you. Okay, then next we'll have Dr. Watts and then Ms. Newbill. And this is a question on safety. What is your opinion on school police? How do we keep all students and staff safe in and around schools without turning our schools into armed institutions? And can restorative justice play a role in school campus safety? And for those of us who may not quite understand, please explain briefly restorative justice. Okay, Dr. Watts?
Thank you. So restorative justice is an opportunity for us to engage students and staff and community in dialogue when there has been a harm that has been inflicted or has occurred on a campus, for us to restore the damage that has been done. And we do that in utilizing various strategies, part of that being restorative circles, where we bring those together, the people who were involved in the conflict together, so that we could look at how do we restore that relationship that was broken. When we think about using restorative practices, the restorative practices should be across the board in our schools in terms of a model of how we engage with students, staff, and community, making sure that we're using restorative language, but also using those restorative practices. School police are there to monitor and keep safe the property of the school, so the school buildings and things like that. And currently, school police are patrolling the perimeter of the school site. Now, I recognize that the California Ed Code requires that law enforcement is brought in when certain infractions occur, but I am a firm believer that school safety means that all of the entire school community is involved in making sure that the school is safe. So that means that everyone on campus is trained in de-escalation strategies to make sure we're using a common language, and we all have a way in which we are moving to keep everyone safe. That's students, staff, and community as a whole.
Newbill?
Yes, and so to school safety, and as mentioned, the restorative justice practices are just that. They are there to help us as a school site be able to resolve conflict, and many of our campuses are fortunate to have restorative justice teachers who are the ones that facilitate this. However, this practice should be across the board for all teachers to be able to use these practices within their classrooms in order that the students and staff are familiar with how to restore peace back to a campus. Safety, as far as a community model, as the state does require that we have a comprehensive safety plan, which can include our law enforcement, school resource officers.
Sherlett, your speaker is,
Should be a product of the community. This would be able. Can you hear me?
yeah,
It's breaking up a little bit. Can you hear me now? Okay.
okay.
Sorry about that. And so I do believe that, schools, safety officers should be part of that program or part of that safety plan in order to allow the community to choose that, because there are programs like Safe Passage that will allow our students to come to and fro from school safely. But when there are infractions and when there's high risk areas, that we are able to call in an agency that is trained to work with our students, I think is very important, and that we will be able to staff an agency of school resource officers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So Ms. Newbill, you'll go first this time, and then Dr. Watts. I apologize. I did not address you appropriately before, Dr. Watts. And this time we're asking for 1.5 minutes, so a slightly briefer answer, but it's a bigger question. Sorry. The LAUSD is massive. Speaking as a long-term parent here, spent millions of dollars and decades on countless reform efforts to attempt to improve student outcomes and increase local control and community involvement. What are the top 3 things you will accomplish to achieve those goals if elected? Words are cheap. Why should voters believe that you will be able to accomplish your plans and that they will truly make a difference in the lives of the students? So again, Ms. Newbill.
I think, as you said, words are cheap. And that's why, as someone who has been in the schools, walking the grounds, I think it's important, person by person, to communicate and to have an open door policy, to know exactly what's going on within our schools. I think it's very critical for us to know that things are not going to change overnight. However, because of the investment of individuals as a board member to know exactly how things are going within the school, within the families, I think that is critical. And because as a parent wanting to see these things actually change in this time, makes a big difference. And I think I bring that quality and that perspective to this board.
Okay, your top 3 things you'd like to accomplish was part of the question.
The top 3 things is to maintain our Black Student Achievement Plan, which is innovative, and to expand our community schools and to partnership programs with our local colleges to ensure that those resources are being used for our students. As well as mentioned before, communicating those ideas.
Great, thank you, Dr. Watts.
So first of all, we have to make sure that we are keeping the students at the center. So you said, words are cheap. We have to focus and make our decisions based on what's going to be best for our students. And so engaging with our entire community to ensure that they are involved in the decision-making process. So as I said, authentic family engagement, family and community engagement, focusing on making sure that students with special needs get the services and supports that they deserve, and also making sure that our Black students and other vulnerable populations are receiving equitable resource allocation, making sure that community is involved in that, and holding the superintendent accountable. For the past 3 years as chief of staff, I've been able to be engaged with the superintendent and senior staff in meetings. So I believe that as a board member, I would continue those conversations and discussions and be able to push forward to make sure that we are able to do what is best for students by keeping students in the center. Beyond those 3 things of equitable resource allocation, supporting students with special needs, and family engagement, making sure that our families and staff have access to affordable housing. And that's a tall order, but I believe that if we are all focused on the support of our students, we can achieve it together.
Thank you. Here's one I think it's really interesting. Dr. Watts, then Ms. Newbill. Please describe an ethical dilemma you have encountered in your career and how you resolved it.
An ethical dilemma. I will tell you, I served in my last role as the vice president of education for a family services organization. And when I started in the organization, our staff were making, some of our staff, a category of our staff were making essentially poverty wages. And I had to work as a senior management member. I had to work with our senior cabinet to improve the working conditions for our staff, because many of them were working 2 and 3 jobs in addition to their school job. And while it was a hit to our budget, I had to listen to our staff, because these are the people that we were putting in front of our students who were taking the brunt of the work, and they weren't being compensated properly, nor did they have access to healthcare benefits. And so for me, I had to stand up, even if it was going to mean that I wasn't able to keep my job, which I did, but to make sure that they got what they needed, because we couldn't treat our staff in a certain way and expect them to provide services and supports to our students in a professional manner.
Okay. Newbill.
Yeah, so many situations arise when you're on site. One that I can remember just recent. So even in light of what's going on with our students today and keeping them safe. And so we had a student who identified with the LGBTQ plus community, and the parent was not aware. The parent kind of pressured the staff to give insight as to the preference of their student, and wanted us as a staff, and myself as the dean at that time, to give confirmation one way or another on the role in which the student wanted to be when they were on campus. And it was very challenging because, of course, the parent is there, you know, demanding and wanting this information, but yet the student is there and needing to be protected. And so it was very challenging because for the student, that's why we're here. We're here to protect them and to make sure that we make these ethical decisions to provide them safety. And unfortunately, that parent was not able to get the information from me that they thought could solidify or answer the questions that they had on behalf of that student. And so that student in turn felt safe and comforted throughout their time being at the school. And I think that is why we're there, to provide safe spaces for our kids in spite of the pressures that may come from a parent. So that was one of mine.
Yeah. How are we on time here? I think it's time now for your closing statements. And for these, you'll have 1.5 minutes to lead us to the ballot, which will be going out, by the way, at the end of the forum about 1:45 today, and we should have the results at about 2:15. So, but we'll be sending them out anyway, so we'll let you know. Okay, Sherlett, you want to do the first first closing statement?
All right. Thought we were flip-flopping, but I'll go.
Oh, did we flip flop again? Oh, did I? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, Didi, you do it. You go first, because I think you just finished speaking, right?
No, I didn't just.
I don't know where I'm at.
Okay, so it's Ms. Newbill's time to do
Okay.
the closing statement.
Okay. Sorry.
So we're good. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I know the internet has been
Yeah.
less than gracious to me today, but I'm here again as Sherlett Hendy Newbill. I am proud to be a product of LA Unified. I am proud to be endorsed by the incumbent George McKenna, who believes in me, not to mention many other elected officials within this board district. And it is great honor that as a student, as someone who has come back to this area and stayed in this area to champion for our students, as well as mine included. As a mom, as a parent, as a coach, as a teacher, I say, let's champion together. Let's be victorious. Let's be the ones to see the voice of change within our board district. Let's champion Sherlett Hendy Newbill as your next board member for Board District 1. Thank you for this opportunity.
Watts? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I believe that I am uniquely qualified to serve as the role of board member for Board District 1 because of my 27-year career in education, serving across multiple education sectors, having served in traditional district and charter and nonprofit and private school as well. I bring a perspective to the board that is currently not there. I am endorsed by current members of the Board of Education and really want to see all students be able to attend their neighborhood school and know that they're going to get a great education. As I shared, my children, I had to make very difficult decisions for them. 2 of my children now currently work for the district and 1 works in a charter school. So again, I see the perspective from the parent lens of choosing a school that is going to be a great fit. And I believe that we can make our neighborhood schools great as choosing me for your board member for Board District 1. Thank you so much for your time and consideration today. And as ballots have already gone out, I hope that you will consider my experience that I bring to this role in my multiple roles as you choose your next board member for District 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both very much. We really appreciate you taking the time to come out and interview with us. And good luck to you both. Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Okay, so next on board, we have a candidate for judicial seat number 124, Kimberly Repecka. And some of you may remember Kim if you were at our holiday party because she showed up with her gang, and it was really lovely to meet. It's lovely to meet people also kind of socially, before we interview them. So thank you for coming, Kim. And as you heard, you'll have a series of questions. Most of them will be 2-minute answers. You'll have 2 minutes to open, 2 minutes to close. And at the end of the forum today, we'll be sending out ballots. We'll be voting. We need 60% to endorse from the club. And then we'll let you know. So Mary Jack here is going to be your timer. And
right.
she has her signs up waiting. She jumped in at the last minute. And thank you so much, Mary. And so Jane Wishon, who is my co-host today, will be sharing the questions. We'll be asking you questions back and forth. Okay?
Perfect. Thank you. Yes.
So the first thing is your opening statement. Okay?
All right. My name is Kim Repecka, and I'm running for LA Superior Court Judge Office 124, and I'm a registered Democrat. And I'm running because I value service, not status, and I think that that is what LA County voters deserve. Most of my experience has been in criminal court and dependency court, but I've also volunteered with, trained, and studied housing issues, public benefits, family law, immigration, licensing, small claims, and employment law. I just never wanted to tell someone sorry that I don't know how to help, so I tried to educate myself so I would know how to help. I've represented victims directly, not as my witnesses, but as my clients, including children and adult domestic violence victims. I've also represented criminal defendants, many of whom have trauma histories or have been victims themselves at some point. And because I've represented different parties and perspectives, I take a holistic view of cases, and I keep an open mind. I frequently worked across the aisle with prosecutors when they are willing to work with me. That's not always the case, but on multiple occasions, I've convinced prosecutors to dismiss cases because of clearly illegal searches, because I find exculpatory evidence that my client is factually not guilty. And when it does appear my client is responsible, I work with them to try to figure out what motivated that criminal behavior so it can be prevented in the future, especially if mental health or substances is a factor. And I try to figure out what the victim wants from their perspective too. Even this last week, I spoke to 2 different victims, not related to my clients, absolute strangers who knew clearly the clients are not in their right state of mind. They need help. They need treatment. They don't want prison. So I know how to prioritize those things. And I've done a lot of things that I'm really proud of in my capacity as a deputy public defender, as a child's attorney, and as a parent's attorney. And I look forward to telling you more about that in my closing statement. But get to questions.
Okay, thanks. Okay, the first question, interesting. Could you please describe one instance in which you faced an ethical dilemma and how you resolved it?
So I have had clients in the past who have made disclosures, and there's a disconnect between what California ethical obligations are and what the model rules hold in terms of what we do if our client, for instance, says something along the lines of them wanting to hurt someone else. And in fact, in California, the rule is that you are only permitted to disclose that if you are pretty convinced that they are actually going to do this awful thing, that they're going to seriously injure or kill someone. So ethically speaking, it is safer as a California attorney to say nothing and risk something terrible happening. And I've had clients that have been in that situation before. And the way that I have resolved that is by talking them through it, connecting them with services, sometimes connecting them with services both that I hope will prevent them from doing something awful, but also in the event that they make that same disclosure to a mandated reporter, now they are in a situation where they may be placed on a hold, where they are going to get that mental health help. and where I have not betrayed their trust. They have disclosed it to someone who is in a position to help and to do something about it. It's actually a thing that I learned from representing kids, because you have that same obligation. You cannot, it's attorney-client privilege. And if your client says something about how they are going to be harmed, how they're going to harm someone else, you still can't disclose it unless they give you permission. So the way that you deal with that is by seeing if you can get them to trust a mandated reporter, someone who is an actual therapist, an actual counselor, and not an attorney, and who has a different obligation to the community, to public safety, as opposed to that obligation that is solely to the client.
Thank you. Yeah, that's tricky.
Yeah.
Very tricky.
Yeah, no, it's always a hard one.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So my turn. Hi. Thank you for being here today. Have the available diversion programs and special courts made a noticeable difference in the levels of incarceration in LA County? Why or why not?
So I do think that they have made at least some difference. The availability of misdemeanor diversion, I think, has been the most impactful, because it has really put a lot of discretion in the hands of judges. And I think that most judges understand at this point that most people consider the misdemeanors that are not explicitly excluded from judicial diversion to be the types where they should grant diversion. In other words, if it's not domestic violence, if it's not a DUI, if it's not a sex registration kind of a case, then in general, they should be seriously considering diversion as an option on misdemeanors. I think that it has been less successful than it might otherwise be for a variety of reasons. One is that the collaborative courts generally require the consent of a prosecutor to actually get in there in the first place. Also, the Clara Shortridge Foltz collaborative courts currently, the judge who is presiding there is saying that she does not want to handle diversion cases. She only wants to handle cases where people have already pled and are on probation. So you have these sort of negative incentives where judges are treating the mental health diversion cases as too burdensome. They want to send it somewhere else. And then the collaborative court judge who's saying, well, I don't want these either. I want them to be on probation. And a sort of entrenched sentiment within the DA's office that I don't think is coming from the top. I think it's coming from a whole lot of higher ups in between, where they don't necessarily actually want to see these diversions being granted. They would rather have suspended sentences. They would rather have people admitting to strikes. Sometimes we are still able to avoid prison, more often than not, but it is very often with people still suffering the convictions, and where it is treated as though someone needs to earn rather than need treatment to get diversion. And I think that that's problematic. It's a problematic way to frame addiction and mental health in general.
Thank you. We know there are different kinds of courtrooms in the system. For example, criminal, civil, dependency. Which type of courtroom do you feel you're best suited for and why?
Well, as I mentioned during my opening statement, and thank you for that question, I do have a variety of experience in a lot of different areas. And I think that actually makes me surprisingly well suited for a lot of different areas to start with. I loved my time in dependency. I really did. I think it's kind of treated as the redheaded stepchild of the court system in general. Nobody seems to want to go there for the most part, but I think that you can make such a huge impact there in terms of preserving families, keeping children safe, and really trying to uplift the voices of family members and people who are invested in this family and keeping it together. So I think I could be really impactful there, but I would also love to do work in criminal court. I think that it is troubling how many judges are just not following the law, not following the law of Humphreys, not following the constitutional mandates that they have, and that we've had to rewrite the mental health diversion statute like a couple of times to actually communicate to them, yes, this is what the legislature wants. Yes, this is what the people want. They want to see more people in treatment. They want to see less people suffering convictions. Yes, even for kind of serious crimes, if they're not explicitly excluded, this is something you should be considering. So I think that it can make a really positive impact in either of those spaces. Those are really where my depth of experience is, but I have a breadth of experience in these other areas of civil law and housing law, employment, things of that nature. And I think a lot of new judges do start in places like traffic, small claims, or family, all of which I have some experience.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. What is your understanding of an opinion about the LA Superior Court's new bail schedule and why it was changed?
So my understanding of what it says generally is that the default, not necessarily the rule in every single case, but the initial default should be that for misdemeanors and non-violent or low-level felonies, people should be able to be cited out on zero bail on a promise to reappear. I know that those can be subject to review by judges, and in certain situations, they can still make different decisions, even before the person is arraigned. And it seems like it involves enough latitude for there to be individualized arguments about specific public safety risks. But it's both consistent with the law of Humphreys, and it appeared based on the press release that I read from the Superior Court that it was based on seeing that there was not actually a significant increase in recidivism or in failures to appear when this was the rule that was adopted during the pandemic. So they continued with this new rule because they saw that it was not actually causing serious issues with public safety. It was not causing issues with people failing to appear at court. And so why are we keeping people in jail at great public expense and at great individual expense to these people? And people lose jobs, people lose housing, they lose their kids waiting in jail for a court date. And that's not right when they're presumed innocent. So that's my understanding of why it changed. And I think that it's absolutely consistent with what the constitutional mandate that we have is.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for all your really good answers, really informative, well thought out. Okay, so I think that's our last question for you here. And if you would like a 2-minute closing. I also do want to let everyone know that we did invite your opponent, who is the incumbent and had some issues, and she did not return our questionnaire or get in touch with us to let us know why she might not be appearing. So do you want to give a 2-minute closing now?
Sure. That is seemingly kind of consistent with my opponent's issues, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but if you have not read the 12-page admonishment of her, I strongly recommend that you do. I would like to talk about the things that I'm proud of that I have accomplished in my career so far. One of those was getting an exemption for a man who was applying to work at a group home with at-risk youth, and getting him that exemption so he could work there even though he had a felony in the past. And that communicated to both him and to the kids that live in that group home that just because you make a mistake doesn't mean that your life is over, that your life is ruined, that you can't go and help people in the future. I obtained unemployment benefits for a man that was laid off from Superior Grocers because they didn't think he was an efficient enough worker. So he was able to feed his family while he looked for new work. I got a dependency case dismissed for a mother who had a long drug history, but she got clean on her own a year before DCFS filed a case trying to take away her newborn child. And I've also helped countless other parents reunify with their kids through counseling, through treatment. But I've also been the child advocate for a 4- and 6-year-old who were severely sexually abused by their father. And I litigated the bypass of reunification services so that they would never have to see him again because they didn't want to. And I thought that was fair. I have convinced prosecutors to dismiss domestic violence cases where it was clear that their alleged victim was the one who had actually abused my client. And I have gotten assault with deadly weapons charges dismissed at the preliminary hearing because there was clear evidence of self-defense. And I found a drug program for my client who was deaf. It was in San Diego, and the prosecutor just said it was a waste of time and we should just send him to prison for 2 years. And he successfully completed that program and he got his cases dismissed, which is what the victim on the case wanted too, by the way. And despite all of that, all those accomplishments required either a prosecutor or a judge to do the right thing. I had to persuade them, even though I knew what the right thing was already. And what I am asking for is the opportunity to let me do the right thing, to have your endorsement and your vote. And I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for joining us. And as
Thank
I
you for
said,
having me.
we will be having our vote, which takes 60% at the end of the forum, and we will let you know.
All right.
Decision
Thank you
is.
so much for your time.
Thanks, Kim. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Okay, so is Supervisor Mitchell here?
She is. I'm looking for her. Supervisor, is your camera on? And no, I admitted her.
Yeah, because I don't see her name.
Now I don't see her.
Hi, Cara. This is Renee.
Hi, Renee.
Hello. The supervisor should be joining right now.
Okay, that's perfect. Right on time, Renee. Well, this has been great so far, everyone. I'm really excited. I want to tell you all too that I will be posting we will be posting the recordings of these meetings. I rewatched our meeting yesterday, and I have to tell you, it is even better on film, because it just kind of runs along, and it's so informative, so interesting. And when I send it out, as soon as Kelly, he does our posting to YouTube. As soon as he gets it up, I'll be sending out an email on that. So really do tune in, do rewatch these forums because they are so worthwhile. Hello. Yay, so happy to see you. I love
Good
you.
morning. Good morning. I hope everyone is safe and dry.
And dry. Yes. Well, we are just so happy that you're here, Miss Holly. It's so great.
Well, Cara, I appreciate you and all the members of West LA Dems for being such a proactive, engaged, energetic Dem club. Always have been. We're counting on you to always be. It was great to see everybody at your end of year gathering. So thanks for having me today.
Yeah, and if those of you who weren't at the holiday party, you missed out on something. Holly, you were so amazing. I'm going to post pictures, I promise. I keep saying. And there you are, front and center, looking fabulous. Okay, so for your forum, because you have so much background and because we are interviewing you, because really you are the viable candidate, you are the only viable candidate, you are an endorsed candidate. We'd love for you to share with us maybe, 4 or 5 minutes of whatever you want to say, and then we'll ask you a few questions that you might not address, and then go on with your day. And
Beautiful.
This is Mary Jack. Mary is going to be your timekeeper, so she'll let you know when you've done 4 or 5 minutes, okay?
Thank you. Well, Mary, I'm going to try to keep it well within 4 because I know you have a full day, lots of candidates to interview. And I want to say thank you. And thank you to West LA for being with me from the very beginning, quite frankly. When I ran for the assembly in 2010, it's hard to believe it's been that many years, but it has been. Very proud in this reelection effort to have County Dem Party, LA Times, La Opinion, the governor, Governor Newsom, Mayor Bass, and many of the elected officials in the numerous cities I now have the privilege of representing. Let me just say, when I decided to run for the Board of Supervisors, little could I or any of us have imagined what our lives would become in 2020. And as you'll all recall, a week or so after the March primary, our lives changed as we know it. And that required that we change. I, as now an agent of local government, everything from our campaign then to our governance and the kind of policies we've brought forward. So I'm very proud to be a member of local government that was aggressive in our efforts to protect Angelenos and equally as aggressive in our efforts to help Los Angeles rebuild and recover from both a public health and economic pandemic. I'm proud to have brought forward the motion to make sure that we were applying the federal recovery dollars equitably across the district, that we were focusing on communities that were disproportionately harmed by COVID, a strategy, quite frankly, that brought LA County to the attention of the federal administration. And we've been invited to the White House twice to talk about our equity tool that we're using to really invest those dollars as the federal government deemed it appropriate. So I'm proud of that. Proud of my work to continue to talk about poverty alleviation and recognizing the role poverty plays in creating a scenario where people find themselves unhoused or involved in some governmental system, either children in our foster care system or our adults locked up in jail. So the fact that we brought forward the largest guaranteed basic income program in the country is something I'm very proud of. I think the last two things I'll mention is housing. We know that one of the primary solutions, in addition to income and appropriate wraparound services, is actually housing. And so I'm proud to be the inaugural chair of La Casa and all the work we're doing to increase housing production, tenant protection, and affordable housing preservation. Those are the 3 Ps of La Casa, a new regional entity that is working very hard to center government in the space of low and affordable housing production. Our RV encampment motion, as well as our motion that ended oil drilling in LA County as we know it. 2 additional really cutting edge motions that I've got colleagues across the country who are looking at the models we've brought forward. Again, with our RV encampment, our family, friends, and neighbors who are living in their cars and RVs, working hard to get them placed in first temporary, then permanent supportive housing, and dismantling the RVs to make sure that we take those most often uninhabitable vehicles out of circulation, because we're finding that there's this real underground economy where our unhoused are being taken advantage of, where they're being charged rent for those vehicles. Those are the things we've got started in our first 4 years. Many of those are systemic challenges that are going to require long-term systemic solutions that you can't get done in 1 term of office. So I'm hoping I'll be reelected to continue this good work. Thank you.
Are you muted?
I was going to say, I think you might have a chance of being reelected.
Well, let me just say, I take nothing for granted.
I know you don't.
brand new communities that we're representing in the 2nd district, our coastal communities. Glad to have Big City Dems endorse us. So I'm working hard, Cara.
You know what? And I appreciate that, Holly. I really do. I think you always do. I mean, you are one person really, and when we all look around, not everybody does that. Some people just, well, I'm just obviously going to be reelected, but you do it. I mean, anyway. So now we have some really hardball questions here for you. Anyway, the first question is, each supervisor represents over 2 million residents. So what systems have you in particular implemented to stay in touch with your constituents so that it's not just the most vocal whose needs are addressed?
I'm sorry to interrupt. Are we timing?
Oh, yes. These are 2 minutes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
That is an excellent question, and thank you for that. First thing we did, I come from the tutelage of Diane Watson. In my early 20s, I worked in her district office, where I learned very early the importance of constituent services. We had a chief of staff then that would say, I know that you all think working in the Capitol and working on policy is sexy, but constituent services is why people are elected and what gets people reelected. It's constituent services that people, value, frankly, the most. And recognizing the fact that I am the first line of government for the many unincorporated communities across LA, I take that very seriously. So we've done a couple of things. I've set up an unincorporated areas unit in my office, because we found that compared to our experience at the state, we were having sometimes a challenge getting county departments to kind of respond to our constituent services inquiry. So we have a young man named Tyler who does part-time policy, part-time pure constituent services work to bridge that gap between the needs of constituents in unincorporated areas as it informs our policy making. So we've created that whole unit in our office. I've also opened 5 community offices. So we want people to know that we are in your community. So I'm not expecting you to come to us, we come to you. We have community offices in Koreatown, Expo Park, Carson, Lenox, and the Marina. So I think by standing up these community offices, not many have so many. It's really my effort to have a physical presence in every corner of the district. Those offices are staffed, so people know we're there and can get to us and have real working relationships with my constituent services reps who serve their geographic area. That's how we spread ourselves out to serve as equitably as we can all 2 million residents who call the second district home.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. So I get the next question. By the way, I'm not asking you where you get your news. You may or may not remember that conversation we had a long time ago that I should
Right.
ask people, get your news. That was what you told me to ask candidates. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know where she gets her news. Getting our unhoused neighbors into permanent housing solutions is a tremendously important yet complex issue. Can you please explain how the responsibilities and authorities of the cities, the county, and the state have to mesh in order to address it? Where does the responsibility for leading these efforts need to come from?
That is a great question. I may not get to all of it in 2 minutes. Let me say every level of government has a role to play in providing supports. The county, of course, is the lead in the support. And when you say permanent supportive housing, the supportive piece means the wraparound services that gives people the help they may need in order to stay housed. Not everybody needs supportive services. Some do. Between job training, access to healthcare services, case management, mental health services, substance use abuse services. So the county is the lead on that, and that's our bailiwick, that's our lane in terms of all those kind of supportive services. So the county leads that. We partner with the cities. We are providing the mental health services at all of the in-home safe sites for the city of LA. We are providing support services for other cities. I was proud to give some discretionary funds to Redondo Beach for their pallet shelter. We've supported Culver City. And so, every level of government has a role to play. And it's what we can do to make sure that we are providing the kinds of services that will increase the likelihood that someone feels safe, seen, and ready to come inside. We are going to operationalize the governor's care court. I am certainly hopeful that Proposition 1 will pass, which will create additional opportunities for us to move Prop 63 dollars from one bucket to another, again, trying to house people who are suffering from, in this case, severe mental illness, again, with regard to care court. So I think every level of government has a role to play. We all have to lead in our respective areas, and it's about coordination. LASA plays a role. La Casa will play a role. Mayor Bass has played a role. We at the county are playing a role. And from my perspective, our numbers of houselessness is a regional issue that requires a regional solution. So I'm encouraging the mayors and the city councils of all of my cities to step up and lead.
Thank you. This question, if you can, we'd love you to answer in 1.5 minutes. The county charter, like the county itself, is vast and complex. Is there one thing about the charter that you would change if you could wave your magic wand? And if so, what would that be? If you change nothing, what then works particularly well in the charter for you?
Thank you. There's absolutely something I would change. And I introduced the governance motion that my newest colleague, now Chairwoman Horvath, was gracious enough when I introduced it the second time, because I lost it the first time. She came on as a co-author and we got it through. And it's to really evaluate our governance structure. We are 5 because that's what the founding fathers thought was appropriate when the charter was written. Voters have denied expanding the board multiple times, but we put forward a governance motion to look at how we do our business, to figure out if we need a committee structure, if there's ways in which our motion process and our budgeting process could be more transparent and transparent to the public so they're able to engage. In this governance motion, it's also a report back and ability to study whether we should expand the board. So I hope that through the governance motion, We will be able to collect examples of best practices all over the country for how counties govern themselves, how they conduct their business. And if we come to some agreement, it would then have to go on the ballot for voters to decide. But I think we need committees to allow us to spend more time to delve more deeply into policy issues, as opposed to running motions and voting on them as a body of the whole.
Okay, great.
Thank you. All right, and then our final question for today.
1.5,
Please, I'm sorry, what?
1.5.
Oh, 1.5 minutes, okay. Please tell us more about the county's guaranteed income pilot program. What are the goals of the study, and do you foresee a larger program in the future?
Well, hope springs eternal, Jane. There was a wonderful LA Times editorial last week that gave examples, personal interviews with 3 of our unhoused people, and the kind of preamble or the intro, if you will, talked about, sometimes it's just a matter of resources, that people don't have enough money to be able to afford housing. Dr. King's last huge campaign that he waged before he was tragically assassinated was his Poor People's Campaign. And one of the tenets of the Poor People's Campaign was this notion, going further beyond minimum wage, that all work is valuable and every human being should be entitled to a guaranteed minimum income that allows them to thrive and survive. And so this concept was started by former Mayor Tubbs out of Stockton, not started, but he kind of brought it back after the Poor People's Campaign, hugely successful in Stockton. And now there are guaranteed income programs all over the country. And my goal is to really look at how we as government can play a role in ending multi-generational poverty by truly investing in people, allowing them to figure out what's best for them, and giving them enough money to make a difference. CalWorks and food stamps are not enough money to make a difference in someone's life. It may bridge a temporary gap, but it's not enough to allow you to go to school, invest in a small business. It's not enough to allow you to lift yourself and your future generations out of poverty. That's our goal with guaranteed income. There are dozens of programs across the country, all being studied. I look forward to seeing the research evaluations. Been hugely successful in Kenya. They've got the longest running pilot, 7 years, amazing outcomes that we're attempting to replicate here in LA County.
Thank you. And now 1.5 minute closing.
I want to thank you all for your time. Really hoping that I can count on you, as I always have, to support me in getting across the finish line for this next election cycle. I've said it very publicly, and I will continue to say, serving on the LA County Board of Supervisors is the last elected position I intend to have in my political career. This is where the rubber meets the road for me in terms of the kind of public policy issues that are life sustaining. And so to be able to hopefully, knock on wood, serve another 4 years and then a final 4 years, thanks to term limits, I think that over a 12-year period, the amazing team I put together with their youthful exuberance and brilliance and energy is really going to help us deliver all the kinds of innovative, creative solutions and services that the people of the 2nd District, I believe, deserve. Everybody wants to live in a community where they feel safe, seen, and heard, where they can send their children to a school that meets their needs, where they have tree canopy and open green space and clean air. Every corner of my district, everybody wants that, and I believe we all deserve that. So I'm going to continue to work to make sure that we close healthcare deserts, that we build affordable housing, that we make LA County a regional a community where people can actually use public transportation. And I'm going to need your help to continue the work and get there. So I hope I can count on you, and that you'll tell your family, friends, and neighbors, particularly those who live in these coastal communities who've never had Holly Mitchell on their ballot. Tell them why you support me and why you think they should as well. Thank you so much for your time today.
Hey, but I have to tell you, Ms. Mitchell. You're gonna have a hard time convincing us after 12 years that you're gonna end your career here, because I don't think we're gonna let you go. I am not kidding. I think
I didn't say I wouldn't be working, Cara. I just said I wouldn't be running for public office. So I hope to
well,
be
I'm
something
sorry.
to
I
make
think we
some
might need
difference.
you. I'm sorry. The country may need you, darling.
Touche. All right.
Okay, so thank you very much. And we have our vote at the end of the day, 60% to get elected, to get endorsed, that is, and we will let you know.
Thank you so much. Everybody have a safe Sunday. Thank you so much.
You too.
Good to see
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye. Oh, I love her. She's so wonderful. Okay, so now we're back to our judicial forum, part 2. And we have two more wonderful candidates with us. We have Mr. Jacob Lee and Mr. George Turner. And I think Jane will get there spotlighting them. Highlighting them, that is. Hello and welcome to our forum. I'm Cara Robin. I'm president of the West LA Democratic Club. And this is, Jane Wishon, who is our acting VP Political and will soon be going on to join our board, stay on our board as a member at large while she continues as the chair of the West Side Democratic Headquarters. And then we have Mary Jack here in the other line above here, and Mary will be your timekeeper today. She'll be your best friend today, and she's not going to interrupt you verbally. She's just going to hold up 1 minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, stop. Okay, so you can do that. And you could also time yourself if you like. So we're going to vote this afternoon after everyone has spoken. We're going to vote on the endorsement through a ballot, a ballot sent through Election Buddy. It takes 60% for our endorsement, so it's been pretty difficult for someone to get the endorsement, but good luck to both of you. So you will each have 2 minutes for your opening statements. Then we'll ask you 4 questions, and Jane and I will alternate asking the questions, and you will alternate who goes first for each question. So Mr. Lee, why don't you begin your opening statement and then followed by Mr. Turner, okay?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. So I'm running for judge for 2 reasons. One is because I want to be a voice for justice, and I want to be a voice for everyone in LA County. Now, I had the privilege of being a voice for justice for over a decade as a deputy district attorney in 2 different offices. First in Fresno County District Attorney's Office for 2 years, and my remaining time in the LA County District Attorney's Office where I currently am. But I think I should also explain what got me into dedicating my life to public service to begin with. And it actually starts from my very upbringing. I was born in South Korea, but a year after I was born, I immigrated to Los Angeles. And when my parents immigrated to Los Angeles, shortly thereafter, unfortunately, they were robbed multiple times. My mother was robbed twice. My father was robbed once at gunpoint. I was actually with my mother during one of those robberies, but I was too young to remember it. A few years later, my parents told me what had happened. And the first thing that I asked was, did they catch the perpetrators? My parents said no. I asked why, and they said it was because they never reported the crimes to the police. It's because they were intimidated by the police, the way they looked, the fact that they felt that they didn't speak their language. They were just intimidated by the criminal justice system in our country. And that's a feeling that a lot of people that I've interacted with throughout my life, my friends, family members of friends, strangers even, have felt at some point in their lives. And that's a big reason why I wanted to dedicate my life in public service, specifically as a deputy DA, to be a representation, to be a voice for people like my parents and other people who lack the voice. But I want to be able to do that for all people in LA County, and that's why I'm running for judge. I'm sure hopefully in the other questions, I'll be able to talk a little bit more about my background, but that's kind of the starting point of what got me into dedicating my life in public service to begin with. Thank you.
Mr. Turner? Oh, and by the way, I thank you both for being so accommodating at changing your time for us. We really appreciate that. We know how busy everyone is. Okay, George, you're
Um, Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me?
yes.
Okay, so first of all, let me say that I'm sure that there'll be some sort of technical difficulty. Every time I touch technology, there's usually a problem. So I apologize in advance. Second thing, tell you a little bit about myself. I'm born and raised in the city of Inglewood. I went to public school my entire life. So I went to Morningside High School, then UCLA, then UCLA Law School. I graduated valedictorian from my high school. I graduated summa cum laude from UCLA. Then I graduated and Phi Beta Kappa from UCLA, and then went on to UCLA Law School, where I majored in, or my concentration was in critical race studies. I've been a public defender for the last 15 years. I have been representing folks from the Inglewood, Compton Airport, and Central Courthouse. I've worked in a variety of different assignments, and I'm really passionate about representing my community. And I've considered my time there an honor. I'm also currently the deputy in charge of the homeless mobile unit, where our specific edict is helping our unhoused neighbors get their records expunged. So you might ask, if you've had such a good time at the public defender's office and you enjoy your work, why do you want to become a judge? Well, the reality is this. The laws have changed significantly thanks to people who are like the people right here in the West Los Angeles Democratic Club. So many things have changed in the law. Unfortunately, when you go into the courtroom, too many things have not changed. And we need bench officers who are willing to apply the law as it currently states, or as it currently exists. That's exactly what I want to do. I believe that there are opportunities for things that don't require putting people in cages, and actually addressing the circumstances in which they exist. So I'm sure we'll be able to get into some great detail about what my specific plans are. But I want to thank you guys for this time. I know that you guys make the wheels of democracy run. And so thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you both. Okay, so we're going to start then with Mr. Turner and then followed by Mr. Lee for our questioning. First of all, what is your general judicial philosophy?
Absolutely. So I'm first.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Am I
Yeah.
interrupting you?
Yes.
Sorry.
No.
Okay, so my judicial philosophy, as I kind of spoke previously, is, I believe that members of the community come into a courtroom, they ought to have access to both being heard, and they also ought to have access to healing. I think that the goal is that people should come out better than they leave when they come into a courthouse, or they come into a courtroom specifically. I believe that the law has changed significantly, that there are opportunities for things other than just putting people in cages when they make poor decisions. That is not me saying that I don't believe that there are some folks who are a danger to the community and should be put in custody if they are a danger. However, I believe that we've tried mass incarceration. We've spent a significant amount of time putting people in cages, and it's demonstrative that it just doesn't work. That we get what we call repeat customers, people who make the same mistake, or people who come into courtrooms over and over again. And the reason why they do is because the circumstances that brought them to that courthouse, whether it be mental illness, whether it be housing, whether it be other sort of circumstantial issues, are not addressed through the court. And I think that, if people are going to come into the community or from the community with these issues, that the court should address them. And so, that's sort of my judicial philosophy, is healing and having people heard in front of a court. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacob Lee.
Yes, thank you for the question. My view is balance. That's very, very important, especially in today's day and age, given especially what's been happening recently. So as I explained about my own upbringing, I have been a voice for justice for a long time. And, I've been fighting for victims all throughout my career. But another part of my career that a lot of people don't realize is I have been giving defendants, offenders coming through my courtrooms second chances every single day. I'm right now, my position in my office is called a calendar DA. That is typically a senior position in my office where the DA makes offers on many serious and violent felonies, including attempted murder, residential burglaries, robberies, pretty much any felony you can think of. And I've been a calendar DA in my office for the past 2+ years. I'm actually one of the youngest calendar DAs in my entire office. And every single day, I'm basically making offers on what is the best outcome for this offender. Does he deserve a second chance? What's the best outcome for society to keep society safe? What's the best outcome for the victims? And as I do this balancing act every single day, the majority of my cases I'm actually resolving for probation, not non-custodial probation dispositions, or even diversion. Because the thing is, a defense attorney getting probation and diversion and no jail time, that's usually the best, something that they'll go for because that's the best deal they can get them. But it's a very different situation when a DA who has the ability to make a state prison offer is actually offering diversion or probation, and that's exactly what I have been doing. Because you need, for restorative justice to work, you need a DA who also agrees with you, right? You need to have that handshake on the other side, and I've been that DA where I've been making that happen. So I do believe of all
Thank
the
you.
candidates,
That's
I have
time,
the
sir.
most balanced view on justice. Thank you.
Thank you. So you go first next, Mr. Lee, and then Mr. Turner. There are concerns about quote unquote regional justice, meaning different results depending on where you are in the county. How will you work towards making sure your decisions as a bench officer are always equitable?
So that pretty much goes in line with what I was saying before. Whenever I look at cases, and whenever I'm making offers on cases, I don't look to the person's race or their socioeconomic background, because I also understand what it means to be racially discriminated against. Because growing up as an immigrant in Los Angeles, I was called various names growing up, and I was discriminated against in school as I was growing up as well. I grew up in the LAUSD school system from elementary school, middle school, high school. And, there were times when it was tough and I was bullied. So I understand that. My family also struggled financially, especially in the early years. So we didn't have it easy. So I do understand what it means to struggle in life and how sometimes people feel that the only options they have might be to commit crimes. Maybe it's for financial gain, maybe it's because of substance abuse issues or mental health, or probably a combination of all three. And so I try to focus on the individual. I try my best not to focus on the socioeconomic background as much, but obviously those all play a part. And that's the reason why, depending on the offender situation, you need to incorporate vocational training. You need to incorporate other tools and resources to make sure that this offender actually has, that we're setting him or her up for success and not failure. And so the way you structure that is very important. I've been doing that pretty much every single day for the past 2+ years in structuring offers that make sense. But at the same time, there also needs to be enough is enough. When you have someone who is not interested in treatment because of the many times this person has been given a chance, but is committing the same crimes over and over again, but it becomes more serious and becomes a serious danger to society, that's when enough is enough.
Okay, thank
That's
you,
what I mean
sir.
by balance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's time. Mr. Turner, same question about regional differences.
Absolutely. So that is a great question, and one that I've actually struggled with throughout my career. That when you walk into a courtroom in Compton, you're going to get different offers than if you walk into a courtroom in Torrance, or sometimes if you walk into the same courthouse or in the central court and you're on, floor 13, you're going to get a different experience than when you're on floor 15, or it's sometimes even as close as one bench officer is in one courtroom and they're giving offers that are different or having a very different experience than the court right next door. And that leads to a sort of troubling outcome. And it becomes very, very difficult. So that's a very, very interesting question and a fair question. Um, I know that bench officers or judges do not control what other judges do. You are sitting on the bench and you have the right to run your courtroom the way you see fit. However, I do think that there needs to be, a sort of meeting of the minds about applying the law as it currently stands. I think that the voters in the state of California, the legislature has been pretty clear that mass incarceration is something that we need to get past. That the idea that if someone comes in and they've committed a crime, whether it be serious or whether it be a misdemeanor, that we just kind of throw them in a cage and then the next day, we bring them back in another 3 years and they're back. I think that it is time for all bench officers to sort of come together and have a meeting of the minds to discuss, how do we address making sure that members of our community they end up in a better situation than they leave when they come into a courthouse, whether they be defendants or whether they be complaining witnesses. They need to end up in a better situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then Mr. Turner, you'll continue this question, followed by Mr. Lee. Please describe one instance in which you faced an ethical dilemma, and how did you resolve it?
Absolutely. So, as a public defender and as someone who handles criminal defense cases, there are a host of potential ethical dilemmas. The one that I guess I will address today is in domestic violence cases, particularly misdemeanor domestic violence cases. It's situations in which I have a client who I represent, and the person who is the victim in the case or the complaining witness in the case will contact me personally and say, "Hey, I don't want my husband or my boyfriend to be prosecuted for this case. It was a mistake. I didn't call the police. A neighbor called the police. I don't want this to happen. It's not fair." And the ethical dilemma is the distinction between doing what's best for your client and making sure that the complaining witness or the victim is someone who is advised of the law, and also not making myself a witness. So how do I handle those ethical dilemmas? I've always been very, very clear to every one of the complaining witnesses that come for me that my best interest, or I represent the person who's accused, and that it would be best to talk to an investigator from my office, and also to advise the district attorney specifically who's handling your case to be in contact with them to discuss your feelings. But I cannot specifically advise you on what you ought to do or what you ought not to do, because I don't represent you. I represent my client. And so that's something that happens often, ironically, in domestic violence cases. Thank you.
Next.
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you for the question. The first thing that comes into mind is filing. I've been in various situations where I had to make a filing decision. And one case, for example, would be where the requested charge was murder. It was a vehicular manslaughter situation, but depending on the circumstances, it can also be charged as murder. And that's what the detective and the police agency was requesting. But ultimately, we filed vehicular manslaughter. And so, of course, in those situations as well, you have the victim's family members wanting a much more severe crime, like murder. But there are times when we have to, given the evidence, make sure to charge the case appropriately and not simply overcharge, knowing that it might be pled down to something less, because that would be unethical. I know some prosecutors may want to do that, and in their mind, they might rationalize it by saying, well, we could initially charge it as murder and plead it down as what, the person probably is going to be found guilty of at trial, but that's just unethical because as DAs, you can only file what you believe you can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And so there are times when the victims and the detectives want something and we have to file less. But then there are also times the other way around where domestic violence is a very common one, where the evidence is very clear that this victim is definitely in a very abusive relationship and that the person's safety is at risk. But then, even though we can objectively tell from everything we're seeing and all the injuries and all the facts and maybe what other witnesses are saying, but then all of a sudden, a few days later, or certainly when they're in court confronting the offender, they all of a sudden don't want to prosecute. Those are also very tough because we have to understand where the victim's coming from. But at the same time, later, I've been thanked for prosecuting those very cases. Those are the tough ones. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next question is for Mr. Lee and then Mr. Turner. We know there are different kinds of courtrooms in the system, for example, criminal, civil, dependency, etc. Which type of courtroom do you feel you are best suited for and why?
I mean, certainly it would be criminal law. That's what my professional career has mainly been in. Having said that, it's certainly common that, at least in the beginning, if I were elected as judge, because of various needs in the court system, that they can place new judges in family law specifically, or possibly even civil or traffic court, and then eventually transition the person into the person's expertise, which in my case will be criminal. But having said that, if I was placed in any other non-criminal courtroom, I have faith that I can actually do well and excel. And a part of that is because I do have some background in civil. It's not completely foreign. I mean, obviously, I graduated from law school from Loyola with honors. And I also had the privilege during law school to intern with a federal civil judge, the Honorable Margaret Morrow, in the U.S. District Court in downtown. And all we did was civil during those many months that I was interning for her and researching legal research and writing. That was actually my best class in law school. I received the highest grade in that class. And it was mainly civil that we were writing about. I don't think actually we wrote anything criminal in that class. And so I certainly have the ability to adapt and become an expert in any field of law, whether it's civil or anything else. But having said that, certainly criminal would be my expertise. And the reason why it is important to have judges who are actually experts in that field of law is because it's all about your judgment that gets refined over the many, many years, making the right judgment calls on what to do with certain offenders and victims. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Turner.
Thank you for the question. So, 15 years I've been in the criminal court. I've handled juvenile court. So certainly if we're talking of purely experience, I would probably be best suited for a criminal court. However, I'll tell a little story. Part of the reason why I'm running for judge is because of my experience in a family court. My Some of my close friends were going through the process of adoption. They used my name for recommendation, and I actually wrote out their recommendation. And I was there at their adoption hearing they were able to adopt their son. And as we were walking out of the court, my wife turns to me and she says, "You could do that. You could absolutely be a judge in a family court to to go through adoption proceedings." And what I told her was, I said, that is awesome. It does look like it's a fun experience to have, but I'm guessing that in family court, judges are not just doing adoptions every day. My time in family court, my time, however, in juvenile court did have a huge impact on me. I saw the impacts that specifically dependency has on young people and the sort of impact that it has on them long term. I've actually stayed in contact with many of my clients who were in juvenile court, and some of them are doing good, some of them are doing bad. But I think that I would be able to be a decent family court judge and a decent juvenile court judge. But if we're talking about purely experience and passion, I think that my 15 years experience in criminal court would put me best suited there. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want me to do this, Cara, or are you?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so now it's time for your 2-minute closing statements. So we'll begin with Mr. Turner and then Mr. Lee.
Thank you. So first and foremost, so far, I'm going to knock on wood. I haven't had any sort of technical difficulties. I'm thankful for that. I apologize if there are any other issues. I'm actually sitting in church right now in my pastor's office, so it hasn't been any reverb. I will say this. I always take time to say thank everyone, because you guys are the ones that make this democratic process work. I am just a public servant. I've been a public defender for the last 15 years, and I'm still very unfamiliar with the campaign process and the election process, but I've been going through it. So thank you for this time. I think that I am someone who is from the community, someone who's seen the impact that the criminal justice system has had on individuals, and someone who is very well suited to apply the law as it currently stands. So many people have done such great work to actually pass laws that are more in line with what is evidence-based in successful outcomes. And it is now time to make those laws real, whether there are a variety of different laws, including the alternatives to incarceration, whether it be the changes in the law for post-conviction sentencing, whether it be laws on bail and pretrial incarceration. So many laws have changed, and it's time to make those laws actually real, actually work for the people of the greater Los Angeles area and Los Angeles County. I feel that I am uniquely qualified as someone who has been fighting to make those laws real in the courtroom for the last 15 years, make them substantive. And the reason why I'm running for judge, and the reason why I think I would be a good judge, is because I have the sort of experience and passion for making sure that it works. I want to once again thank you for your time, and I'm asking for your endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacob Lee?
Yes. Thank you again, everyone, for spending your Sunday afternoon listening to us speak and listening to my story. Public service is something that I feel strongly about, giving back to the community. And that's because as I was growing up, as I mentioned earlier, there were actually not a lot of people like myself, Asians, who I can actually look up to and see in the police force, or even as a deputy district attorney. A lot of people, when they first meet me, they often say, "You're the first deputy district attorney I've ever met." And that continues to be the case now, but I'm so privileged that I'm in this position where I can actually be that kind of voice for people like them. And I've always been giving back to the community since then. And that's not just for the Asian community, but it's pretty much for everyone in LA County. And given my experience, I do believe that I can be a very balanced judge on the bench, where I know what it means to fight for victims, but also to know what it means to give second chances, because I've struggled, as I said before, a lot through my life. I'm also grateful to have the endorsement of 48 judges of the LA Superior Court. These are people who are willing to put their reputations on the line to endorse me, because they know that I have the judicial temperament to be a good judge. They've seen me in court on a daily basis, oftentimes for several years. And so I'm very thankful for that. And, my family, my wife, actually, she's also a nurse as well. My mom, she's a nurse for over 40 years. Is actually from my mom, who I learned about the importance of giving back. She was always telling me, even when I was in high school, to spend some time volunteering at a senior center. which is something I've did for several years throughout high school and even throughout college, and even as a DA. I've been teaching about the justice system to elementary school students. So I
That's
thank you
time.
everyone for your time, and your endorsement will mean a lot to me.
Well, thank you both very much. Thank you for taking time out of, I'm sure, your very busy schedule and your Sunday to share your insights with us. And at the end of the meeting, we will be sending out our ballots, and they're via email. And we will need, as I mentioned before, there's 60% for endorsement. And we will let you know later today or tomorrow the results of our voting. So thank you, and have a great day. Okay. Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, so we have another set of candidates coming in, Christopher Darden and Leslie Gutierrez, which is seat 130. So Janie, you want to bring them in? I think they're both here.
Mr. Darden, you need to turn your camera on, please.
Good afternoon.
Okay, and let's go to this.
Do we see her?
Yep.
There she is. Okay, great. And so thank you. Welcome. I'm Cara Robin. I'm president of the club. And my co-host today is Jane Wishon, and she is our acting vice president political, soon to be on the board as a member at large as she continues chairing the Westside Democratic headquarters. We're very happy to have you with us today. For your timekeeper today, we're going to have Louis Watanabe, another one of our members at large. And he's very colorful in giving you, and we do it so that you can see them clearly rather than interrupting your flow with 15 seconds, 30 seconds time, so he's your best friend, so pay attention to him. I have to go back now to the election ballot. Our ballots we're sending out at the end of the day today, and I have to make sure everything's okay. And Jane will be taking over questioning you, and will explain the process. So see you in a few.
Hey, Cara, would you like me to take you off spotlight then?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
I'm gonna stop my video anyway while I'm working.
Yeah. And just to clarify, someone asked me in chat, the previous race was seat 39. This is for seat 130. So, hi, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Hopefully everyone's dry. You will each have 2 minutes for your opening statements. Then we'll ask 4 questions, alternating who goes first for each question. You have 2 minutes to answer each question, and then a 2-minute closing. You'll see a 2-minute theme here. You may wish to time yourself as you go, but Mr. Watanabe will help us stay on top of the timing. Later this afternoon, I believe you may have been here when Cara was explaining that the endorsement vote will take through Election Buddy, and it takes 60% for endorsement. So we'll begin the opening statements now with Mr. Darden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, and good afternoon. You're all behaving like lawyers, private defense lawyers, by working on Sundays, because that's what I do. I work on almost every Sunday. I'm Christopher Darden. I've been a member of the California Bar since 1980. I've been a prosecutor. I was for 16 years. I was a full-time law professor at Southwestern University School of Law for 4 years, an adjunct for another year. I taught criminal law and criminal procedure. I teach at Santa Monica College, where I teach criminal law and crime scene investigation, and I'm beginning my 7th year there. So I've seen both sides of the courtroom. I have almost 200 jury trials that I can document, and probably have more. And so I've been here a long, long time. And, I am a Democrat, and I am a believer and supporter of social justice reform. I've been in the courtroom. I represent defendants. I try cases, all kinds of criminal cases. And every day I am asserting and arguing for the rights of people who cannot stand up for themselves, who cannot afford rich, glitzy lawyers. I stand up for people who are overcharged and people who are even factually innocent. I have a very successful trial record, especially for a criminal law defense attorney. I'd like your endorsement because I stand for, practice, and am a symbol, I think, of the democratic principles that you stand for and that the Democratic Party stands for. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. Unmute yourself.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you for having me, and thank you for volunteering your time. My name is Leslie Gutierrez. I'm running for judge in seat 130. I'm a mom, I'm an immigrant, I'm a lifelong public servant, and I've been rated well qualified by the Los Angeles County Bar Association for judge in my seat. I immigrated to the United States when I was an adult because I was the victim of anti-Semitism in my home country. When I got here, it was complicated, it was hard. I didn't speak English fluently. I learned English actually, or mastered English by watching Jerry Springer and going to grocery stores and asking people where the butter was. And when my English I felt was good enough, I applied for law school. At the time, I was working as an office assistant, and when I began law school, I remained in that job. I was working while I was going to law school full time. I externed for the Federal Public Defender's Office as well as the Judge Pregerson, who is a federal judge. I graduated in the top of my class, top 1%, summa cum laude in 2010. And after graduation, I went on to practice as a criminal defense attorney. And for the last 12 years, I've been representing you, the people of the state of California, in court as a deputy district attorney. I have been assigned for the last almost 8 years in units that deal with crimes against vulnerable victims. And I mean children, elderly, and women. I am currently assigned to a unit that is the sex crime division in Pomona, where I exclusively prosecute sex crimes. I'm endorsed by the Los Angeles County Democratic Party, Santa Monica Democrats, West Hollywood and Beverly Hills Democratic Club. I'm endorsed by over 40 judges, and I hope to earn your endorsement as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. So we'll start next with Ms. Gutierrez and then Mr. Darden. What is your general judicial philosophy?
My philosophy would be to be obviously fair and respectful, but I think ultimately my philosophy is to be transparent. When people come into the courtroom, it's very important to explain to them in full details all of the rulings, and it's very important to do it in plain English. Because I wasn't born here and English is my second language, I tend to speak in simpler English, and I find that it's very effective with jurors. Most of our jurors are 10th grade level, but a lot of our defendants are not. And so explaining to people in plain English without using any type of legalese is very important. It's important to give people a full opportunity to be heard. And after they've been heard, explaining the ruling fully and being transparent about it is what's going to bring back and repair the relationship with the general public, because they'll feel like they had their day in court. They may not be happy about it. Neither party may be happy about the ruling, but I think that as long as someone is respectful and makes people feel included and respected in court and makes them feel like they had a full opportunity to be heard, then I believe that people will begin to respect the system again and feel included by it.
Okay, thank you so much. And Mr. Darden, your general judicial philosophy.
Well, my general judicial philosophy would be to make sure that all important factors are taken into consideration. I've been a prosecutor. When you're a prosecutor, you talk to the police and you talk to witnesses and victims. And I did that for 16 years. For 25 years, I've been a criminal law defense attorney. I've been in the lockup, I've been at the jail, I've been to the prisons, and I've spoken to people and met people and talked about their cases and talked about their lives and I've talked to them about the obstacles that they've had to try and overcome. I've talked to them about the reasons and the basis for their criminality. So I have an understanding that I don't think you can get just from being a DA. And I think I can recognize the subtleties, what's really involved and what's really going on with a particular criminal defendant. I want to be fair, and I will be fair. I'm going to give people an opportunity to be heard. Too often that doesn't happen. My philosophy is to make sure and pay attention to make sure that the defendant that's sitting there isn't in a mental health crisis, and to ensure that a mental health issue isn't the bottom line or the reasoning or the foundation for that person's criminal conduct. I'm going to look out to see who deserves a second chance, who deserves mercy, who deserves a program. I'm going to make sure that that prison pipeline isn't just wide open, and that those who deserve to go, and protect the community at the same time. But on the other hand, I'm going to bring some humanity into the courtroom. That's my judicial philosophy.
Great, thank you so much. And then it's your turn next, Mr. Darden, and then Ms. Gutierrez for have the available diversion programs and special courts made a noticeable difference in the levels of incarceration in LA County? Why or why not? Mr. Darden.
Well, these programs and these courtrooms have certainly made a difference in the number of cases that proceed on through the criminal justice system in the old way. And I can tell that that's the case from my own experience, because I have clients that I currently represent and have represented over the past couple of years who have applied for diversion programs, who've applied for judicial diversion, who've gone through mental health court, and who've gone through veterans court. And all of that, I think, brings us back to the issue of the court recognizing and paying attention, focusing on those situations where there might be some underlying reason for the defendant's criminality. But also these programs allow us to take a look at the complete background of the defendant. Typically, over the past 40 years, I've been watching judges look only at rap sheets and prior criminal history. These courts and these programs allow us as judges to look at the individual defendant and to assess whether or not there might be a path that could lead to treatment and support and perhaps reduce any possibility of any recidivism. I think these courts are important, critically necessary. The worst mistake we ever made in the criminal justice system was by using the jails and the prisons as warehouses for the mentally ill, for veterans suffering from PTSD and the like. And so, yes, I think they've made a huge difference because they are allowing us to take a look at the individual defendant and fashion some form of justice based not just on the crime or a criminal statute, but on the defendant as well.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Gutierrez.
Thank you. I do think that these courts are helping as well, but they haven't solved, a whole lot. We used to do programs before these courts came into being what they are today. The big change has been who makes the decision. And it used to be my office, the DA's office, that would agree if somebody would go to mental health diversion or a mental health program, which we used to build in a probationary grant as opposed to now sending them to full diversion where no one will get a conviction if they successfully complete the program. So the person who now decides is the judge. And so it solves a lot of issues because regionally, if you come to a court in Pomona or Compton, the results would have been different. Depending on the supervisors, the result would have been different. We would have encouraged the mental health program or not, depending on who was our boss. What the problem that I see is that we don't have enough programs. We need a lot more programs. We need a lot more help. I do see a lot of defendants that we agree to place them on mental health diversion, and they still wait incarcerated because we don't have a program for them. So I feel like we're trying to do the right thing in the court system, but we're still missing a lot of program on the back end. And I think if we increase the number of programs, we'll be able to divert a lot more people and a lot more quickly, because they don't belong in the criminal court system. So it's making a difference who makes the decision, and it's making a difference because we now have more opportunities to divert people, but we still need help. So I don't want anybody to relax. We still need help, and we still need to advocate for more programs to be created.
Thank you. And Ms. Gutierrez, this next one is yours first, and then Mr. Darden. Please describe one instance in which you faced an ethical dilemma and how you resolved it.
Okay. I can think of several ethical dilemmas. In one of my positions, I've looked at cases for filing consideration. And a lot of the time when a victim of rape, especially if it's a child, comes in and they talk a certain way, they say certain things, you know for a fact that they're telling the truth, and you feel very emotional with them, and your heart goes out to them. But at the end of the day, we have to look at the case and whether or not we can prove that case in court. And so sometimes it's just, it's hard to do, but we do have to decline those cases regardless of whether we believe the victim, because we have an ethical duty to do what's right. And in my position as a deputy district attorney is to make sure that I can file charges that I can prove to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt at the time of filing, not, after investigation, more investigation. At the time of filing, when it's presented to me, I have to make that decision. And it's not a decision that I make lightly, because when someone enters the criminal justice system, it has a huge effect on them. So that would be, I think, one of the examples that I could give you.
Okay, thank you so much. And Mr. Darden.
Problems with ethics in prosecutors is an age-old problem, and it continues to be a problem. And that's why California has a statute that makes it a felony for prosecutors to withhold exculpatory evidence. Typically, the ethical issues in the prosecutor's office and not necessarily in the defense attorney's office where I sit. But I will say that the latest and most important ethical issue I confronted was with the defendant testifying in a criminal case. And based on my review of the case, understanding of the case, and what the client had said to me previously, my belief was that the client was going to get on the witness stand and commit perjury, tell a lie on a material fact. And that creates a huge ethical dilemma for me, because I like to stand on the truth, give the jury the truth, and put it in their hands. And in that case, I called the bar, I got some advice. I looked at the statutes regarding attorney ethics in trial, and I put my client on the witness stand. And in those areas that were questionable in my mind, I followed the rules of ethics as established by the state bar. I did not ask the client specific questions. I did not ask questions designed to drag those lies out of the client on the witness stand. It's always a tricky issue in trial, because you want to do the best you can for your client on the one hand, but on the other hand, what matters most is integrity. Mine as a lawyer, and the integrity of the criminal justice system. It has to be a place where truth is the only kind of evidence or testimony that's allowed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Darden. You go next on this question. And then Ms. Gutierrez. Are you unable to hear me, Ms. Gutierrez? I noticed that you're leaning forward when I'm speaking. Do I need
I
to
can
speak up?
hear you, but my left ear is better than my right ear.
Ah, okay, great. Thank you. I'll try to speak up a little more. Sorry if I blast everyone else then. How have you mentored, empowered, and or supported women, Black, Indigenous, Latino, AAPI, and LGBTQ plus people in your career and in your campaign? So, Mr. Darden, you go first.
Well, in my life, having grown up in the San Francisco Bay Area, it's just natural to support the LGBTQ community. When I was in the district attorney's office, a prosecutor came to me and told me that she was going to come out and make an announcement, and she asked me for my support. And in fact, just last week, she mentioned it on my Facebook page, thanking me again for the support I gave her many, many years ago. I support openly in social media, as I always have, the rights of individuals to be who they are, to equal rights, to be treated fairly and not in a discriminatory way. I have mentored and inspired many lawyers of color to become lawyers and to go on to law school. I can think of a couple of Latino lawyers right now that I mentor, young lawyers and others. It's just been part of my life. I currently represent transgender women in Chowchilla Women's Prison who've been victimized by prison guards, sexually abused by prison guards. Other lawyers wouldn't take their case. They only wanted to represent biological women, but not me. Everyone is entitled to equal treatment under the Constitution, and everyone is entitled to be protected and safe, even in a prison setting. I stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. And I'm always happy and have for 30, 40 years extended my hand to those who needed a hand up.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Gutierrez, please.
Thank you. I've noticed in my office over the years how women are not treated the same as men. And as I was coming up in the ranks, what I noticed was a lot of the older men attorney would pull younger men attorney onto their big cases so that they could, the younger men attorneys could get more opportunities, more promotion, more big cases. And so I took a page out of their books. And then now that I'm getting the big cases, I'm the expert in sex crimes in Pomona. All the, very gnarly cases that you see on TV that come out of the East District, I have them. The murder of, 2-year-old children, the sex crimes on, elderly, those are my cases. And so I pull those young women onto my cases as well. Whether they're in my unit or not in my unit, I get them to come in with me because their exposure to my cases, they'll be able to put them on their resume, and then they'll be able to get themselves more bigger cases, and then they can list that. So when promotions come, they can be considered for promotion. So that's what I've been doing in my office. I also participated in Project Lead, which is a program for 5th graders, where we go into schools and we talk to children. I do that in Pomona with kids who are minority kids. And the reason why I love doing it is because these kids look at me, a woman with an accent, and I tell them, you can go to school. You can go to college. Here's how you do it. I understand that your parents, may not have the money, but you can access grants. You can access scholarships. And I talk to them about going to college, going to trade school, doing something other than not graduating high school. So I try to motivate them to become better, to reach for the stars, because I think when they hear the message for someone who resemble where they came from, it matters. Thank you. Sorry.
You can continue your thought in your closing statement. We'll begin with you, Ms. Gutierrez. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm running for judge because I believe that diversity of background, country of origin, religious diversity, cultures, races, gender identity, amongst other factors, promote inclusivity by drawing on various perspectives. Diversity on the bench is vital to achieving a system that's viewed as credible and legitimate by our population. The hardships that I've gone through as an immigrant, I can help bring a fresh perspective to the bench that will lead to more compassionate results. My early exposure to diverse background made me someone who's flexible and tolerant. I can easily listen to different points of views without immediately feeling the need to reject them. And there's a value in listening, learning, and changing one's opinion. There's a value in diversity of thought as it provides a perspective not previously considered and encourages collaboration. There's a value in having a bench that comes from different socioeconomic backgrounds. I know what it's like to be in Los Angeles without a car and having to rely on public transportation. I know what it's like to be discriminated against. And while my experiences are vastly different from people who cannot hide their skin colors, what I went through, the pain and the fear that I've personally experienced drive me to seek justice for everyone and to protect others from feeling the way that I've felt. For over a decade, I've been making critical life decisions that are selfless, courageous, and fair. They're well-reasoned, and I'm prepared, ready, and well-qualified to continue making this decision on the bench. I sincerely believe that my unique background will enrich the Los Angeles County bench by providing different perspectives. And I'm going to rely on my experiences to make decisions that are fair and equitable, compassionate and proportional, and empathetic and reflective of our democratic values. And I humbly ask for your support.
Thank you. And Mr. Darden, 2 minutes closing statement. You're muted.
Thank you for your time today, and thank you for considering my application. You know, I go into this world and I walk in this world not expecting a whole lot. I don't expect a whole lot of help. I don't expect a whole lot of endorsements from judges. I'm a warrior. I fight. I fight with judges. I fight for my clients. I fight for the Constitution. I fight to make sure that the Constitution and the law is fairly applied in my cases. If you know anything about me, you know that I stand for victims, that I stand for the rights of victims and criminal defendants. You know that I am outspoken, and you know, if you know anything about me, that I stand up to power. I'll even stand up to the Democratic Party if I have to. So I'm prepared to go into this campaign and this election without anybody. I'm going to stand on my record as a lawyer. I'm going to stand on my record as a civil rights lawyer and as an advocate for my community, for the LGBTQ community, and for people like Miss Gutierrez. You know, I'm not an immigrant. I'm a migrant. I'm the son of a garbage man. I'm one of 8 children. I grew up in a house that was 800 square feet with 1 bathroom, and there were 10 of us. By the time my mama was 27 years old, she had 8 kids. I know about poverty, and I know about struggle, and I know what it takes to be a judge in this environment. It takes courage, it takes backbone, and it means not just doing things the same way they've been done in the past decades. I'm ready for this job. I'd like your support. I'm asking you for your support. But whether I get it or not, understand that when I get to the bench, I'll be there for everyone.
I was going to say you could finish the thought even though the time was up. Okay, yes, thank you so much. Thank you to you both for coming in virtually on a Sunday afternoon. As I think we explained earlier, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but we will do an election buddy ballot at the end of our next set of interviews. And then Cara will be back in touch with the results of that. Take 60% of the voting members to achieve endorsement. So thank you so much for coming in. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I just want to say thank you, everyone. Thank you too. I did listen. I have been listening. I'm just working on the ballots right now, making sure that everyone who's here and who is a member in good standing, you must be a member in good standing for 45 days to get a ballot. Because I did notice some people are members, but they've only been members maybe for 3 weeks or a month and a day or something. Know that our bylaws say 45 days to get a ballot. So if you think you should be getting one, but you haven't been a member since, I think it's December 20th, you won't be getting a ballot. So thanks. Back to my balloting. Thanks, Jane.
Sure. Thank you, Madam President, for all the work that you're doing on this. I know it's a huge amount of work. So our next race, so again, that was seat 130. And next, our final set of interviews for today will be Renee Rose and Ericka Wiley running for seat 48. And bear with me for a second while I find them so I can spotlight them. Yeah, actually waving at the camera helps because then I can find you in the, where's Renee? Yep, I have Renee. And then Ericka, where are you? Oh, good, thank you so much. And spotlight. Hi. And welcome, I'm Jane Wishon. That was our president, Cara Robin. And I'm acting just right now as the political vice president. We elected a new one yesterday, but we couldn't wait for that to be able to start this endorsement process. I'm also the chair of the West Side Democratic Headquarters, and I will be an at-large member of the West LA Dem Club board once we terminate this meeting. Sorry, you will each have 2 minutes for your opening statements. Then we'll ask you 4 questions. We'll alternate who goes first for each question. You'll have 2 minutes for each of those. Then a 2-minute closing. You may want to time on your phone or something just to have it in front of you, but Louis Watanabe, who is on the screen with us, will hold up cards to help keep track of the time. This afternoon, our members will vote on Election Buddy. It takes 60% for endorsement, and Cara will let you know either later today or tomorrow what the outcome of that vote is. So we'll begin with Ms. Rose, and then Ms. Wiley will have a turn at 2-minute opening statement. Go ahead, Ms. Rose, when you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you, West LA Dems, for having us today. My name is Renee Rose. I'm running for Judicial Office 48. My entire career has been about one thing: following the law to achieve justice. That means justice for victims. It means recognizing that when holding people accountable, justice does not always include jail time. I have been a prosecutor standing up for victims for the last 32 years. And during that time, I've worked in the hardcore gang unit. I was the meth lab prosecutor while in the major narcotics division. I was one of 2 specially assigned DAs to the arson and explosives unit. And for the last 7 years, I have run the elder and dependent adult abuse unit, where I supervise specially trained staff that prosecutes crimes against senior victims and developmentally or physically disabled adults. Our defendants are the adult children generally, or family members of our victims who suffer from mental illness and substance addiction. They live with their parents because, frankly, nobody else in the family will take them in. So what happens is the most dangerous person in the family is paired with the most vulnerable. Justice for those parents can include mental health and drug addiction treatment rather than incarceration. I believe in serving one's community. I give presentations to senior groups, attorneys, financial groups on what elder abuse looks like and feels like, and how to report it, and how to avoid falling victim to financial scams. An important part of justice is providing this information to the community. I'm running for judge now because I believe I have the right experience, work ethic, and compassion to be a good judge. We need people with empathy who are thoughtful and 30 seconds, got it, who are thoughtful and well-informed and have an understanding that when people come to court is probably one of the worst days of their life. If elected, I will make the best reasoned decisions I can. I will treat everyone with dignity and respect. I am the most qualified in my race as I have done substantial work throughout my career in underserved communities representing the most vulnerable of victims. I have the endorsement of the Met News.
Okay, I'm sorry, but that's
Okay.
time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Wiley, your turn for an opening statement.
Thank you all. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. My name is Ericka Wiley, and I'm a candidate for Superior Court Judge, seat number 48. I've been a deputy public defender for most of my career. I started in 1999 in the Merced County Office of the Public Defender and have been with the Los Angeles County Public Defender's Office since the year 2000. In that time, I've handled thousands of cases. I've done more than 100 misdemeanor, juvenile, and felony trials. I have worked as a deputy in charge in my office for a number of years. And I've worked as a trainer of young lawyers entering the office, specifically in the area of persuasive motion writing. I know this work. I love this work. I have advocated on behalf of mentally ill, homeless, and drug addicted clients for more than 20 years. I'd like to say I've been working in the area of criminal justice reform before it had a name. When I started in this work, 3 strikes was the law, and I spent a good portion of my career begging judges to not send my clients to prison for double-digit prison sentences and sometimes life for minor crimes. But I see that there's been a change and a transition in the law, as well as a recognition by voters that criminal justice reform needs to happen, that the judges in the court need to apply the opportunity for individuals to change their lives so that they return to our communities better than they left. And so 30 seconds, I would like to have your support, and I welcome the opportunity to answer any questions that you have.
Wonderful. Thank you both. So on this first question, Ms. Wiley, you will go first, and then Ms. Rose. What is your general judicial philosophy?
My philosophy is consistent with the work that I've been doing for more than 20 years, that the community is made safer by pouring into the individuals who come before the court. And that means providing them with services, if possible, providing them with treatment, if possible, finding out what the issue is that brings an individual in front of a courtroom, not assuming that they're here because they have a heart to hurt the community, but to understand why they've been brought in front of the criminal justice system. That's the work that I've been doing my entire career. And if the court has resources, to apply those resources as opposed to a default position of incarceration to make all of us safer. So I want to be a judge who is fair, who looks at every case on its face, applies the law to every case, follows the law in every case, and works with the ultimate goal to make our community safer, as well as to give individuals an opportunity to change their lives.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Rose, general judicial philosophy.
Well, I think my philosophy is to balance public safety, rehabilitation, and justice. And for everybody, that's going to look different. And everyone should have an individualistic look at what their life has been, what choices they have made in this life. I think it's important to make thoughtful, well-reasoned decisions and then to explain those decisions to people. I think that transparency is important for people to believe that they have a part in the system. So if I were to make a decision about something, I would explain the reasons for that decision. A lot of times, particularly in the assignment I'm in now, we utilize a lot of the alternative sentencing courts because for the victims, which are the parents of these defendants, what they want is for these children to get treatment. They want mental health treatment, they want drug addiction treatment, they want wraparound services so they have a place to live separate and apart from the parent, where the parent can remain safe. So looking at these types of defendants, we look to see whether or not we can accomplish that, whether we can get them the help that their parents have sought really for their entire lives. And that's part of the process that I would utilize as a judge. I would listen to everyone. I would take in all of that information. And with all of the experience that I've had with 32 years in courtrooms throughout both Riverside, and Los Angeles County. I would try and make the best decisions about each person based individually on their circumstances. Certainly, we have learned a lot about how people can change. And we have at the district attorney's office employed a lot of these options to help defendants in certain circumstances. And I would continue to do that as a judge. I would be fair, and I would base everything on the information that I had before me.
Great. Okay, thank you. Perfect timing. All right. And Ms. Rose, you will continue now with the next question. There are concerns about so-called regional justice, meaning different results depending on where you are in the county. How will you work towards making sure your decisions as a bench officer are always equitable?
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with, as a judicial officer, coming together as groups. I know that the Judicial Council has several committees where they look at various topics within the judicial system, and they bring together judges from different areas to talk about that. And certainly that is a very important issue that has to be dealt with. And I think communication between judges in different courthouses, training for judges consistently throughout the county. I think it's something that we've tried to do at the district attorney's office. We've tried to create a uniform type of charging so that the same circumstances would happen regardless of where in the county you were charged. I think that judges have the same obligation to check in with each other and make sure that their sentences are uniform and they're being evenly distributed amongst the various communities. And I think that the presiding judge has an important piece in that because they are in charge of all that, the presiding judge for criminal, the presiding judge for civil, but certainly the judges need to be aware and constantly in communication with each other and constantly in training to make sure that they are as uniform as they can be in such a vast county as Los Angeles.
Great, thank you so much. And Ms. Wiley, same question.
Thank you. I do believe that the Judicial Council has a responsibility to make sure that justice is being meted out among our courts across the county. I believe that my philosophy individually is that I need to do justice on behalf of the individuals appearing in front of me. I disagree that there needs to be a meeting of the minds between myself and any other judge about what justice looks like to me, because as we know, there are varying opinions about what is justice in a particular case. And so I think autonomy, courage, the ability to tap into lived experience to understand, again, what brings a person in front of the court system and apply justice in a way that is consistent with my background, my philosophy. I've had the ability in my life to, and my work, to represent people who have been accused of some very serious crimes. And I certainly have personal opinions about what that means. But I think justice requires applying and consistency requires applying the law to the facts of an individual case and taking into account both sides of an argument as an individual, as a judge who is making an individualized decision. And I believe that the Judicial Council has a responsibility for making sure that there is consistency across the regions.
Okay, thank you so much. And Ms. Wiley, then you can continue on this question. Please describe one instance in which you've faced an ethical dilemma and how you resolved it.
I've worked as I find ethical dilemmas to be a part of the work that I do. As a criminal defense lawyer, it's, I often get asked the question, how can you defend someone who is guilty? And I answer that question by just stressing that I believe in the Sixth Amendment. I believe in an individual's right to have an attorney and to have a trial and to have a zealous defense on their behalf. And so ethical dilemmas are really a part of the work that I've been doing for many years. I believe in the Constitution, and I think that it becomes real for individuals when perhaps their son or daughter is one who's faced with a criminal charge, and they may know that relative committed that crime, but they want the best defense anyway. They want help for their son, daughter anyway. And so these are dilemmas that are consistent with the work I do. In addition, I have worked as a supervisor. I've worked particularly with supervising new lawyers coming into the office who often struggle with the work. I I consider myself to have been a good supervisor, so I'm friendly with the people that I have supervised. In that role, I've had to sit down and address issues of quality of product for the lawyers who've worked for me. And the ethical dilemma in that situation was protecting the rights of the client, the right to a zealous and prepared defense against what may be a struggling lawyer. And so I handled that by sitting down, talking to the lawyer, addressing what their needs were, and helping them move forward in a way that best represented the client.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Rose, same question?
I'm not sure if either one of these things that I'm thinking of right now is an ethical dilemma. But there was a time where prosecutors would go to lifer hearings. So we would represent the people, we would represent victims' voices at someone who'd been convicted of murder and was facing a life sentence at the hearing, at their parole hearing. What we would do is we would take our file and any other information that we had into this hearing. And when I reviewed a file, I felt as though I had some doubt about whether or not the person was the person that committed the crime. And then after, when the person came and spoke at the parole hearing, I felt like I had serious doubts that he was the person that committed the crime. And so I went back to my office and I told the head deputy of that unit what my concerns were. And that ultimately led to someone being released from prison and having their conviction overturned. I don't think that's an ethical dilemma I had. That's the job. That's our job as prosecutors, is to do justice. So if we believe justice hasn't been done, then that is what it is our job to do. That's sort of why I'm struggling with the question. The other thing I thought about was I lived in Santa Monica and I worked at the Santa Monica courthouse. And hopefully I'll be able to tell the story quickly. There was a woman who had a petting zoo pony ride business that was neglectful of her animals and was charged with 42 counts of animal abuse. I handled that case at the Santa Monica courthouse. When we prosecuted her, another DA came in and handled sentencing for me because I began a trial. What I didn't realize when the judge sentenced her to probation and gave her community service working with animals. That was really offensive to me. I sent a letter to the judge. Turns out that was an ex parte communication on my part.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's
had not been finished.
time.
So, yes, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do that,
but you can continue that thought in your. Nope, we're not to closing statement yet. Sorry, okay. I jumped ahead. All right. Next question. So Ms. Rose, you're first this time. We know there are different types of courtrooms in the system. For example, there's criminal, civil, dependency, etc. Which type of courtroom do you feel you are best suited for and why?
Well, I think I have certainly experience in criminal court, but I have also had experience in family court through a custody issue I had with my husband's and what would be my stepchildren. So I have seen the processes in family court and was in San Bernardino family court for a significant amount of time. I also understand and have worked with probate attorneys because the cases that involve elder abuse and the financial abuse of somebody often cross over into probate court and civil court, in that they also have to do with people who've stolen from trusts, people who are violating conservatorships. And so we have worked closely with probate and civil lawyers as well. So I understand the processes of guardianship and conservatorship. If they were to put me in a probate court situation, I'm well aware of the processes as a family court. And of course, I've had 32 years in criminal court. So I think I have somewhat of a rounded experience, if you will, with various courts. But within the last 7 years, I would say mostly probate court and all the different welfare and institutions codes and people who are litigating this very emotional topic, I think. So I think I could do it all.
Okay. All right. And Ms. Wiley, same question.
Yes, the breadth of my experience is in criminal court. I've worked again in 2 counties at every level of representation, misdemeanors, juvenile, and adult felonies. If I had my preference, well, and I've also worked in evictions early in my career with the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. But if I had my preference, which is what I think the question asked, I certainly love working in juvenile court. Having the opportunity to intervene in a young person's life in a way that can have some positive change and affect their future, I think is something that I've loved as a defense attorney and something that I would enjoy doing as a judge. And I think something that has the greatest societal impact when you can see a young person on the wrong road and give them the opportunity to recognize what needs to happen in order for them to show up better in society and to be a happier individual and provide them with the resources to do that. That's something that I definitely would enjoy and something that I think I've done well in. I loved my juvenile court stint. I did that work for about 4 years. And so that's where I would like to be if I had my choice.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And so now we have no longer skipped ahead. We are now actually to the 2-minute closing statements. Ms. Wiley, if you could start yours off when you're ready.
So much. I am humbly asking for your endorsement. I believe that I am the best candidate in my race. I think my work experience and lived experience is most suited for what's happening in our criminal courts and all of our courts in California and LA County today. As I've indicated, I know this work. I have had more than 100 trials. And I believe that I have, in addition to the support of the legal community for my campaign, the support of the community at large. With regards to the endorsements, I have the endorsement of the Los Angeles County Democratic Party, my own union, the Los Angeles County Public Defenders Union, the National Women's Political Caucus, several labor federations, SEIU's Local 721, the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor, and the full list of my endorsements is at my website, wileyforjudge.com. I would encourage your organization to look at that and to recognize the community support that I have received. And I believe that I've received that support because, again, my values, my work history is consistent with what our communities and our voters want. And that is not the old way of doing things, but a change, a recognition that pouring into our community, recognizing what brings people in front of our court system and addressing those underlying issues is the only way that all of us will be safer. And so I'm hoping that to have your organization endorse me. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Rose, your turn for your closing statement.
Thank you. For the last 32 years, I have been in courtrooms and I have witnessed firsthand the impact of a judge's decision on my victims, my defendants, and all those affected by crime. The importance of electing judges that are fair, compassionate, impartial, and just, and who will ensure that all sides get a fair hearing, and that every person's voice is heard and considered during the decision-making process cannot be overstated. While we all come to this new job with different personal opinions and professional experiences, the job is to be an impartial judge, not an advocate for a cause. My opponent, Ms. Wiley, has aligned herself and her campaign with La Defensa, an advocacy group that states under their section labeled Our Mission, are working to reduce the power and scope of the judiciary, law enforcement, and the legal and justice system. Ms. Wiley, Mr. Turner, and Ms. Henderson all received significant financial and personal campaign support from a justice PAC at La Defensa, which wrote in an article posted on its website on October 23rd, 2023, it is crucial to understand that democracy is impossible in an apartheid, authoritarian state like Israel. All these moves towards fascism leave Israel more and more closely resemble an authoritarian military state. I do not share these views about Israel or the mission to reduce the power and scope of the judiciary, nor do I seek the support of individuals or groups that promote these beliefs. The job we are seeking your endorsement is to be impartial judges of the facts and the law. This job needs to be done with people who are uniquely qualified. The Los Angeles County Bar Association considered all of our candidacy in this race. We filled out accepted questionnaires. We gave 75 people to talk to. They talked to all the people who opposed us in our cases. And what the LA County Bar found was that I was well qualified. I'm the only candidate in my race that is determined to be well qualified. And what they said is the committee believes that you possess the professional ability, experience, competence, integrity.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's your time.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
We let
Thank you very
people
much
finish
for
their
your-
sentences generally.
Can I finish?
That's fine.
Okay,
There was
go
a lot
ahead.
of commas in there.
All right, go ahead, finish your sentence. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. The committee believes that you possess the professional ability, experience, competence, integrity, and temperament indicative of superior fitness to perform the judicial function with a high degree of skill and effectiveness. That's what the rating means. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So at the end, actually, in just about 2 minutes ago, election buddy ballots will go out to the qualified members, as Cara explained. Cara, do you want to take this part?
Yeah, please.
All right, hold on, let me spotlight you.
And thank you, ladies, very much for, oh God, I can shut my phones off, for coming with us today and joining us and sharing your insights, your thoughts, and I wish you both the luck. And we'll let you know results of our voting either tonight or tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Have a great rest of this rainy day.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so the ballots actually have gone out, and I will ask that you hold off for a minute in voting, because what I want to do, someone suggested yesterday that we have a little discussion after the forum, because some people have other things to offer, information we might not have. And so if we could ask the candidates, if there are any candidates still in, to we'll leave the room.
All right, give me a moment and I'll
Yeah, and I would like to have a little discussion. Let's not spend the whole time on one race, because we've got a few. Right.
I'm just glancing
sorry.
down to see if we have, do
I'm
we have
sorry,
any
please call
candidates?
back. I'm on a call. I'm on a Zoom call.
I don't see any candidates
Okay,
in the
perfect.
room. We do have a phone number. I'm not sure who that is.
Well, it's not a candidate because they all have their names. Okay, so that's what I would like to do. Can we, if anybody wants to offer anything about, and just hold on voting for maybe until about 2:05. You have until 2:15. So does anyone have anything to say about the LAUSD, Didi?
I have been right here with him, I swear it. It's the God's truth, Marshal.
I think you should shut you guys, go on mute. Who's ever yelling, go on mute.
I think Jimmy might have the TV on in the background.
Oh, okay, Jimmy wants to offer something. Now we're talking
Unfortunately,
LAUSD.
unfortunately, I live in the house with a deaf person, and the TV in another room, way, way away from me, is too loud. I understand. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I did want to talk about District 1, though, really quickly,
Okay.
in that Didi Watts always talks about all of her experiences, but she never tells you she had all these experiences in the charter school programs. And I like Sherlett because all of her experiences have been in our community public schools where all of our children are not handpicked, but we take all of the children that come to us and we educate them. Didi Watts is only endorsed by people like Melvoy and all of those past charter school board members that we had. And Tanya Franklin, who's on the school board presently, isn't known charter school person. If you look at Didi Watts's contributions and donations online, which I did, they all come from charter school people. And I just don't, I'm not in support of electing a charter school supporter to the Board of Education for all of our children. I have my great grandchildren are in the public schools. Thank you.
I mean, me too. The hard thing is when you look at the qualifications, when you look at what people, their backgrounds, what they are telling us, what they know, how they answer our questions. I don't know. I don't know how you judge people. Is it just if they is the only negative, and trust me, I'm just being devil's advocate here, is the only negative, say, to a super qualified, super intelligent person that they also support charter schools? I mean, I'm a public school person myself, but is that it? Carolyn, and then Sarah.
Thank you. That is not the only thing that I looked at, and that's not the only thing for the presence of this body. That's not the only thing Dr. McKenna looked at.
Okay.
I think he's highly respected by this body. Dr. McKenna wanted someone who has been, Didi just moved to the district. She was in 5. She just moved to the district in May. So she has not been working in this district. She has not been caring about the community and whatever here, number one. But more importantly, Sherlett has been in that position, different positions, 20 years in that community, working with these students, her own children. Everybody always says, we need somebody on the board that's got their kids in public schools. Well, she has 2 boys in public schools. So you think she might want the best? The other thing, if you read the LA Times article that she just got the LA Times endorsement today, read it thoroughly. And they interviewed all of these candidates. And they said the one person that they know will stand up even to the superintendent and even UTLA, which is shocking that UTLA would not endorse. They endorsed her before when she ran against Dr. McKenna, just so you know. Out of 7 candidates, she came in 3rd. And so this is no newcomer to what needs to happen in our schools. And that's why Dr. McKenna picked her, because of all the different varied experiences she has, whether it's LGBTQ, foster
Okay, you know what? Thanks, Carolyn. Okay, let's.
Oh, I hope I answered your question.
Let's go on to Sarah. No, let's go on to
Thank
Sarah.
you.
Let's just,
Thank
because we
you.
don't have time.
No
We have
problem.
those
All right.
ballots. are gonna be
Okay,
done.
well, you didn't
Thank
say
you.
us that time. Be polite. Be polite.
I'm trying.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so
I'm happy to defer to Connie. I mean, everybody knows where I stand. I've written for a dozen years, and I would take you on about the primal importance of charter schools and what they do and risk for our democracy. But I think others we should let others have a voice.
I have to tell you all the truth. The reason I asked for this discussion truly was to discuss this. I think the other, we do have to touch on the other candidates, but I'm at CIC and I interviewed them as well, and we endorsed Sherlett. And because we knew the background, but I am getting a few people who cannot vote, who had to leave and sent me their votes, and they're voting for Didi because of this forum, because of the way she answered the question. I think Sherlett was just not on her game this morning. She had technical difficulties. And that's why I really wanted to share this with these voting members who are here. Okay, so Connie? Connie, did you want to say something? You're muted. Okay, anything else, Sarah?
Sure. Money in democracy matters tremendously. And the amount of money, charter schools are really a proxy for all the money in the world. And you see it in the preparation and the way people answer and the ability to answer and the ability to answer within a focus grouped milieu. So I'm not in the slightest surprised that Ms. Watts answered the questions very, very suavely, as does in fact Nick Melvoin, and any number of these extremely well prepared, smartest guys in the room. It doesn't change the meaning and importance of the ideology. And so I appreciate hearing from you. And I'm really sorry I missed much of the debate, but this is a very big picture question, and it's really interesting jeopardy that we have in terms of how people present themselves, what they are schooled to say, and also our questions, which are difficult to elicit the kind of information we do need, which is what Kara's alluding to also.
Yeah, it's probably that's the reason for the questionnaires. It shows you who endorses them, you know, it gives some, you know, it's anyway. Okay, thank you. All right. So thank you for this, because I think it's important, and I hope everyone is listening clearly to this. All right. So how about the next we have
Connie is unmuted now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Connie, did you want to?
Yes, most definitely. I do want to say something, and I don't know what happened. I was hitting to unmute, and it just wouldn't unmute. Anyway, Sherlett, I have known her from the community, and I always call her a coach, because when I met Sherlett, she was at Dorsey and working with most of the programs at Dorsey, and all the kids at Dorsey, they all knew her in the community. She puts so much time, she does put so much time into the community, from growing up in the community and making herself available. She and her kids and her husband, the family, the whole family. They are, really vetted and vested in this community. And she knows the area, and working with kids and working with schools, working with other parents. So I just wanted to let you know the experience, the knowledge, the ability, it's there. She has it. So, and I know this morning she, wasn't as articulate as I've heard her in the past.
Yeah.
And I don't, the computer and everything else is going on. But I just wanted to share with all of you, I have known Sherlett for probably about 20 years. And I met her in the community, and I'm involved in a lot of community projects, the West Adams Neighborhood Council, and the Baldwin Hills Elementary, and the things that go on in this community, I'm very proud of. And we work very hard to make it a good community for the people who live here. So I just wanted to, let you all know the skills that should be in the person that we elect for our school board. She has them. She absolutely has them.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So do we want to talk about, gosh, what's her name already? Kim Repecka. Do we need to say anything about Kim? I liked her.
Yeah, I just want to give a couple
Well,
of
who
pieces
was her rating on the bar?
She was somebody, who was it? Sarah, did you just send that out?
They are, she and, hold on, let me find it.
Is that the one where the two people?
Okay, sorry, let me explain a little bit about her. So she's running against Judge Emily Spear, who has been
And they both unqualified.
subjected to disciplinary action. They are both rated not qualified. So interesting when you get a sitting judge who's rated not qualified. And Judge Spear chose not to answer the questionnaire. I sit on the County Judicial Interview Committee. And I think we were no consensus on this race, but that's largely, in my opinion, because Ms. Repecka spoke the whole time about Judge Emily instead of talking about her own abilities and achievements. And I find that I will definitely be casting my ballot today for Ms. Repecka, which I did not do in the county committee. So I thought she showed us today who she is in ways that I wish she had shown the county committee. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. So next, well, Holly Mitchell is, that's, I think we don't have to talk about Holly. Who else? Who's the next? Jane, I'm having these election buddies. Mike Newhouse, are you here? Mike, the problem with you not getting your ballot was you entered somehow your own email. I don't know how, when you typed it into to the Zoom registration, you put M Newhouse rather than M Newhouse. So that's why it kept getting undelivered. I'll try again. You might have to give me your ballot again.
Okay, so the next race is Jacob Lee and George Turner, seat 39.
Oh, I found it interesting that Mr. Lee said he had never experienced discrimination or something like that. I said, oh, how could that have never happened?
I'm not a fan of his after either interviews, the county one or this one. And I found that there was a lot of words spoken, but not a lot of pithy, content there. But Mr. Turner, I think Mr. Turner actually was kind of off his game today, which, I mean, I think he's a powerhouse. And I was very impressed with him when we interviewed him for county. And I was impressed today as well, but I think he's in it for all the right reasons, which we don't always see.
This is Alan, is there a concern that the comment that was made by Ms. Rose at the end that Ms. Wiley and Mr. Turner and one other.
But are we talking about, we haven't got there yet, have we?
Well, no, he's talking about.
This is related to it.
Oh, okay.
That Mr. Turner in this race is part of that group supported by La Defensa. That what did she say? That
they're anti-Israel, apparently, according to their website.
And it may take a decent amount of time unless somebody already has background as to what all of La Defensa is behind and how much they're involved in pushing. I don't remember the third candidate. So that's something I would like to know more about. Don't know if we're going to be able to.
Yeah, but the other I noticed that Ms. Rose highlighted that she was highly qualified, but the other candidates are also rated qualified.
That's right.
There's a difference.
But we're not to Ms. Rose yet. I think we're talking about Jacob Lee and George Turner. There is another candidate at the last moment, like literally this morning, sent me an application and I had to explain that she was past the deadline. Rhonda Dixon. And then there's Steve Napolitano.
Rhonda Dixon was not qualified either by the bar.
Correct.
So we're talking about who we have here, and it's now 2:04. Ballots close at 2:15.
And Sarah's had her hand up for a while, Cara.
So let's call on Sarah.
I just back with Kim Repecka and the judge. I wanted to second what Jane said from a different club's perspective. I've had experience in the background and found it's pretty clueless behavior. So, and going no endorsement on a sitting judge is a very loud statement. So I think it's rather exciting to have the opportunity to actually put somebody so super social justicely oriented in place. That said, I think that Kimberly Repecka is an actually interesting contrast with the defenders of justice. I'm not so troubled personally about the Israel stance as about the ideological stance, which is grounded in a space I agree with, which is to decry the systemic bias and injustice within our system, but the ends that are ideologically for them that the system is imbalanced, so we need to elect people who are similarly biased in the other direction to correct to the middle. And I think that an eye for an eye leaves us blind, and that's not the right way to right the ship. I do agree the ship needs righting. I think it needs righting with clear-eyed, sharp and sympathetic and understanding and experienced people who are pledged to be open-minded and neutral on the bench. And the whole essence of the defenders of justice is that they pledge to be not neutral on the bench. And I find that alarming. And also, like the charter schools, this is their second time at the rodeo, and they know, they explicitly have trained to not state that the way they did last time. It is the underlying ideology, but it is unpopular to say so, and they're skilled at not articulating that.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Listen, you guys, I've actually extended the time, voting time, because I think we'll have more discussion going.
So I'm sorry, but Sarah, are you advocating then that we not endorse Repecka? Is that?
No, I
other way.
really like her. She is not.
Oh, okay. Oh, she's not part of that group.
Right?
Okay.
But she is extremely social justice oriented and has experience on both sides of this, DA and defenders, and a huge amount of personal sort of experience to bring, and a record that shows an enormous number of ways in which he's actually just kind of come through and done the right thing without stating, I think that the world is imbalanced, so I'm going to correct it by overcompensating in the other direction. She doesn't do that. So I really adore her. And I think the opportunity to rectify this problem with the sitting judge is amazing. And I want to point out that it's possible to hold the same ideology, hold the same recognition of systemic bias and to work against it without signing on to an ideology that asserts the way to correct it is by running to the other side of the gunnels and overcorrecting in the same amount in the other direction. So I think for me, she represents what the defenders of justice are decrying, but without taking on that ideology.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Well, good, because I like her too. So shall we go to the next race then? What's our next race?
Well, we were doing Turner and Lee. Was there, and I think the comment was,
yeah,
that
what happened was
Turner is part of that
Defenders of Justice.
Defenders of Justice group. But Lee seemed pretty clueless about the systemic racism that others encounter. So I don't know.
I disagree with that. That's not what I understood him to say. He was saying that as a family of immigrants that he had encountered racism himself throughout his lifetime. That was my understanding of what he
I
was.
heard that as well.
I heard him say that too.
Yeah, we
I
all
want to
heard
say,
that.
as somebody who's both run for office and is a lawyer who still occasionally goes to court, it's really hard when there are groups of people running to, if there's a group of people who you share an ideology with, you join them, you may not. As some of us say, a coalition isn't made up of people who are 100% in agreement with everything. All of us are not 100% in agreement. I think we all have issues. So I think for me, the major issue in terms of judicial candidates is I'll follow the law. Because I have to tell you, the judges don't. I mean, they will twist and squirm to not follow the law in a way that has been very detrimental, certainly to my impoverished clients. So I'm a big believer that they should follow the law. And if they don't follow the law, we should vote against them the next time. That's number one. But, and Sarah, I know that that's what they say, but I just want you to understand that when you're on the bench, there are a lot of rules and there are a lot of laws, and you'll get reversed if you don't do it. So if they try to do that, they'll be slapped down very quickly. I think that they know better, but they're appealing to the voter base in LA County, which is basically sick of the way justice is administered on both sides. The people who want the death penalty people, right? I mean, it just is a very difficult line to tread when you're running for office. Right. I mean, are you a YIMBY or a NIMBY? Are you slow growth? Are you, blah, blah. What are you for? I mean, pick a team, pick a label. But I think we have to look beyond the labels that people assign to themselves and think about whether you think the person has some integrity in adhering to the law. So that's just the way I look at these issues.
Anyone else? Okay, so then, oh, you know what? I'm so sorry. I got to stop the recording. I'm supposed to